The Knights of the Zodiac shine and marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226, Truth Reopening. Lizaya didn't remember where he saw a sentence saying that punching the flesh is the romance of men. Compared with women, men's romance is really worthless. But, Hukai, the scene of fists hitting flesh, muscle vibration, blood flying, hormones and adrenaline surging, screams and cries of pain is not something you can experience at any time. However, Lizaya was very kind not to use the power of the microcosm atomic level to crush matter. It would be too weak to punch one by one like Teacher Saitama, and to be honest, he is not here to exterminate the clan. Bang, bang, the continuous sound of fists hitting can be clearly heard far away even in the eternal cold wind of Jotunheim, with Lizaya as the center. The surrounding area is like the scene that was first created by the Matrix and then borrowed by Kung Fu and then became popular. Many frost giants were beaten into the sky and scattered in all directions in a radio parabola. The king of the loincloth looked at all this with cold eyes, as if those who were blown away were not his people, but a group of domesticated hounds. As long as they can cause trouble to the enemy, casualties can be ignored. The frost giants are very powerful, even stronger than the Asgardians, and their strong racial talents make them naturally able to use various ice magic. In addition to the long-range ice cones and spikes before, they can also use ice to make various handy weapons. After finding that they could not avoid Lizaya's fists at close range, they made ice weapons to cause trouble to Lizaya from a distance. It's just a pity that their weapons are not enough to break the defense of the holy clothes. Whether it is an ice spear or an ice knife, stabbing Lizaya only brings up a piece of ice chips. But then again, even if these ice knives and ice spears cannot break the defense, being stabbed on the body will still feel uncomfortable, and it's not a weak person. So after discovering that his fists are somewhat weaker than the attack range of the frost giants holding ice weapons, Lizaya decisively changed his strategy. You guys know how to use weapons, right? You like to stab me with guns, right? I just happen to know a few gun skills. Why don't we hurt each other? With a sonic punch, he pushed away the frost giants who were besieging him. While they were not able to close in, Lizaya stretched out his right hand and clenched it in front of him. As Lizaya moved, a circular wind circle suddenly appeared around his feet. The wind circle rolled up ice and snow particles and flew up, turning into a dragon shape and leaping towards Lizaya's clenched palm. With a deafening dragon roar, the wind and snow dispersed, and a white spear with a length of more than 2.5 meters appeared in Lizaya's hand. The ice spear White Lotus condensed in his hand without firing, and created this spear made of ice and snow that seemed fragile and brittle, but in fact it was sharper than steel. Holding a white spear, wearing a silver holy robe, and with a white cape fluttering in the wind behind him, Lizaya actually felt a bit like Zilong of Changshan. There seemed to be a sound of background music in the air, from the opening music of Dynasty Warriors 4, opening DWS2H mix. You may not believe it, but before coming here, I was a game fan. My favorite game was called Dynasty Warriors. Dao Yun, who always appears in the opening credits of every game, has been my idol for more than 20 years. I have wanted to cosplay him for a long time. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Lizaya threw the spear back and rushed towards the crowd of frost giants at a rapid speed. With every step, ice and snow on the ground would be brought up. Under the huge air wave generated by the footsteps, they would splash around like snow lotuses blooming on the ice field. As Lizaya was stepping on the lotus, he almost instantly collided with the dense group of frost giants on the opposite side. Just before the collision, the tip of the spear lightly touched the ground, and Lizaya's body flipped in the air. After turning sideways 3.5 times in the air, he slammed into the dense crowd. The frost giants at the landing point were directly stepped into the frozen soil by Lizaya's feet. Lizaya did not stop at all. He swung his spear and swept it across his body, sweeping the frost giants' weapons into pieces with the tip of the spear, as easily as cutting melons and vegetables. Then Lizaya put away his spear, took a step forward, and then the spear came out like a dragon. A frost giant with a huge shield made of ice was directly blown away, and even his companions dozens of meters behind him were smashed into pieces. The frost giant with a shield was not without any achievements. His huge shield at least made Lazia's spear pause for a moment. The frost giants next to him immediately seized the opportunity to rush forward and hugged the spear with their bodies. Too naive. Lazia smiled lightly and pressed hard with his hand. The ice spear shaft was abnormally flexible and bent. Although it was only a small arc, it gave Lazia a strong counter-thrust. With this force, Lazia flew in the opposite direction again, stretched out his legs sideways, and clamped the neck of a frost giant next to him with a scissor kick in the air. Then, Lazia exerted force from his waist, and the long spear in his hand led the frost giants who were holding them to draw a huge arc with the trapped frost giant as the center. Wherever he passed, dozens of frost giants were swept away. After shaking off the frost giants hanging on the long spear, Lazia fell to the ground and was relieved to find that the fighting enthusiasm of the frost giants had not diminished at all. Before, Lazia was just defending and counterattacking. As many enemies came as they flew away. Although the scene was also quite spectacular, it did not give him enough opportunities to show his destructive power. Now when Lazia took the initiative to attack, it was really like a tiger entering a pack of wolves. Wherever he passed, there was no enemy, but despite this, the frost giants still rushed forward one after another, belligerent and unyielding. Lazia glanced at the king of the loincloth in the distance. From his position and performance, this guy was obviously a leader-level figure. Maybe he was the newly emerged frost giant king after Laufey's overturn in Asgard. According to the strategy of capturing the king first, Lazia only needs to break through the battle formation and take down the new frost giant king to end the battle. But Lazia didn't want to. It was so hard to have a good time. Why should it end so quickly? Just like playing chess, using tricks and strategies to kill the opponent. But there is no more sense of achievement than eating all the opponent's chess pieces and forcing the old general to have no way out. After a simple look at the king of loincloth, Lazia rushed into the group of frost giants again. For a while, there was chaos, and the frost giants flew around like pins hit by bowling balls. The king of loincloth was surprised to find that although the frost giants were still coming from all directions, more than 2-digit warriors would be added to the battlefield every second, but the total number of frost giants on the battlefield was constantly decreasing. The king of loincloth urgently needed an elementary school student who could crush the crazy pool manager in terms of rank to tell him how long it would take for him to become a commander without troops. I almost went to the palace. There were physical reasons and emotional reasons. I won't explain it because it would be too hypocritical. I have to apologize. I failed everyone's expectations. I'm so sorry. I can't say it. Let's be Buddhist together. Chapter 227 My Friendship. The cold wind was still howling, and the king of the loincloth sat on the ground with no desire to live. His dream of becoming the king had not yet begun to unfold, but was ruthlessly killed on this desolate ice field. What about replacing Laufey and becoming the king who dominated Jotunheim? It was just a foolish dream. An unknown person from Asgard had defeated all the 300 naked warriors he had carefully trained. Even if he still had a loincloth covering his body, the king of the loincloth still did not feel the slightest bit of dignity. Do you accept it? Faced with a question, the king of the loincloth followed the sharp tip of the ice spear, looked up at Lazia who was holding the spear, and gritted his teeth viciously. If the ice box had not been taken away by Odin, you, Humphrey. He didn't finish his words, but Lazia knew in his heart that what followed was nothing more than some words like "you are just a younger brother." With a sneer, Lazia didn't care. For a fellow like you, even if you hold the icebox, you are still a weakling. Don't be unhappy to hear it. I just want to ask you if you are convinced or not. The king of the loincloth stiffened his neck, with a face full of fearlessness. Even if you defeat us, you can't break the backbone of the Frost clan. If you have the guts, just kill me. As long as there is still one person in our Frost clan, we will never bow to Odin's lackeys. Not bad. You are a man. Lazia praised, and gently thrust the spear forward. Swish! With a light sound, the king of the loincloth's eyes began to blur, and in a moment he merged with the ice field. and dust returned to dust. Putting away the spear, Lazia turned around and looked at a guy next to him who was wearing scattered armor and was incredibly strong. This man had been following the king of the loincloth before, and he looked like the second in command. When he saw the king being killed, the second in command was filled with indignation, and there seemed to be fire in his dark red eyes. He gritted his teeth and wished he could eat Lazia alive. Lazia ignored the anger in the leader's eyes, pointed the tip of his gun to the ground, and shrugged casually, saying, "I just killed your new leader. So, do you want to avenge him?" The second in command gritted his teeth tightly. His eyes were about to burst, but he didn't say anything. Lazia laughed, thinking that all the frost giants were reckless men with anal fissures. When they saw the boss being killed, they said nothing and just came up to beat him. But looking at the second in command's appearance, his IQ is still online, so there is something to talk about. The spear in his hand fell apart, and Lazia gently patted the ice chips on his palm. "To be honest, I don't want to kill him, but since I came here, he has been targeting me and wants to kill me. It's really hard for me to think clearly without killing him. But you are different. You are just following orders. I don't blame you." Lazia glanced at the frost giants who were half lying on the ground and humming. At this time, their faces showed a little surprise and anger. "What do you mean? Are we wrong?" Clapping his hands, Lazia raised his voice a little. "To be honest, I am not an Asgardian. I am from Earth." "Do you know Earth?" "It's what you call Midgard." The second in command who was closest to him nodded hesitantly. He really knew Earth. More than 1,000 years ago, King Laufey once brought his old brothers, including the dead king and him, to fight with Odin on Earth. It was at that time that King Laufey was defeated and the ice box was taken away by Odin. Since then, Jotunheim has entered a period of silence that lasted for more than 1,000 years. It would be easier to deal with the situation if someone knew about the Earth. Lazia squatted beside the second in command. "You should know that we are very peace-loving, right, since you have been to the Earth." The second in command subconsciously wanted to shake his head. In his impression, the Earth was just an uncivilized and barbaric land. Would barbarians love peace? "Don't worry. Think about it first." Lazia's smile became more intense, but it looked more fake. "Think carefully. Have the people on Earth ever actively attacked you, had conflicts with you, or robbed you of your things?" "They dare." The second in command muttered to himself and shook his head. "No, they didn't do it." "Perfect." Lazia stood up. "So, your hatred for me is completely unreasonable. It was the Asgardians who hurt you. It was the Asgardians who defeated you. And it was the Asgardians who stole the icebox and killed King Laufey. And I, the Earthling Lazia, your friend, came to Jotunheim with peace and friendship. Whether you believe it or not, I came with sincerity." The frost giants turned their eyes unconsciously to the king of loincloth, whose body was still warm on the ground. "Boss, do you believe what he said?" The king of loincloth died with his eyes open. Lazia sensed everyone's strangeness, smiled and shrugged. "I said, this is an accident." "Okay." Lazia stretched out his leg and kicked the second in command next to him. "You represent everyone to express your attitude. Are you going to accept my friendship from Earth, or continue to confuse me with the Asgardians and fight me to the death?" Everyone was silent, but they all cast their eyes on the second in command. Frankly speaking, although the frost giants have well-developed limbs, their brains are not all muscles, and with a long lifespan of thousands of years, even if they are really fools, they should understand something. Who wants to die if they can live? Didn't the Earthling just say that it was all a misunderstanding? Since it was a misunderstanding, it's fine to make it clear. Although the king of the loincloth was beaten to death, it doesn't matter. Who asked more than 300 people on our side to beat him up just now? It's lucky that they didn't all get beaten to death. Okay. After a little consideration, the second in command decided to follow the public opinion. "Okay, since you're a peace-loving Earthling, then we accept your friendship." "That's right." Lazia smiled and pulled the second in command up from the ground, and helped him to brush off the ice chips on his body. "Let me introduce myself again. My name is Lazia, from Earth." The second in command subconsciously reached out and held Lazia's hand. Berrigan. Under Berrigan's command, many injured frost giants supported each other and left, and the body of the Loincloth King was also taken away. After the Loincloth King died, Berrigan took the opportunity to become the new leader of the Frost Giants. From a certain perspective, Berrigan needs to thank Lazian. Speaking of which, the relationship between Nu and Asgard is really tense. I was also caught in the crossfire. You beat me up without knowing the truth. After the idlers left, Lazian laughed and complained. Berrigan had a sentence in his heart that he couldn't help but say. Did you confuse the word be with the word do? Lazian was still a little puzzled, but as far as I know, you Frost Giants must live in this extremely cold environment. Asgard is not an ideal living environment for you. Why do you have to pick on them? Asgard. Berrigan gritted his teeth when he mentioned Asgard. As long as we have the icebox, we can easily change Asgard and even the entire universe into an environment suitable for us to live in. Not only that, the icebox is also our reliance for entering and exiting Jotunheim. Without it, we can only be trapped here for life. With this, Lazian understood that the icebox can not only transform the environment, but also open a space portal. The power of this treasure is a bit overbearing. It has been dragged on for so long that I can't even remember the plot. Laughing and crying, opening parenthesis. Anyway, it's already like this. Just write it casually. It's better than Eunuch, right? P.S. The setting of the other book is different from this one. Please be mentally prepared. Chapter 228. What went wrong? To be honest, Lazian didn't take the icebox seriously before. After all, in the world of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the famous Infinity Stones are better. In comparison, the icebox, the Eternal Flame, etc. in the Asgard treasury are much inferior. Not to mention the fake Infinity Gauntlet. Lazian still remembers that in Thor 3, when the goddess of death Hela passed by the icebox, she said disdainfully, "It's useless." Of course, considering that Hela only gave a not bad evaluation to the cosmic cube, the authority of her concept is still questionable. But now, Lazian realized that she had made an empirical mistake. The reason why Hela looked down on the icebox was that she wanted to rule Asgard instead of destroying it. And the icebox itself is not just as simple as an ice magic amplifier in Loki's hands. It is a treasure that contains powerful ice power and may have space power. So, if you have the icebox, you can open the portal to Earth directly without going through Asgard's Rainbow Bridge. Faced with Lazian's question, Berrigan gave a positive answer as a matter of course. Of course, otherwise do you think we need Asgard's approval when we go to Midgard? That is, when we go to Earth? Lazian clenched his right fist and hit the palm of his left hand hard. Damn. I should have thought of this problem earlier. I thought we could only go through the Rainbow Bridge. What if? Thinking of this, Lazian narrowed his eyes. Berrigan, have you ever thought about going out and taking a look? Leaving here, leaving Jotunheim, and going to the outside world, not just the Nine Realms, but also the world outside the Nine Realms? Outside the Nine Realms? Berrigan touched his bald head. Isn't the world the Nine Realms? Are there other worlds outside the Nine Realms? However, the icebox can only help us travel among the Nine Realms. We are really not familiar with the situation outside the Nine Realms. So, it's not bad to go out and take a look. Okay. Lazian looked up at the sky. Then wait for my news. I think you will see it soon, Berrigan whispered. Then we have to get the icebox first. Odin is not a generous person. If you want to get ice from him. Whoosh. A colorful beam of light fell from the sky and directly covered Lazian's body. What did you say? Lazian looked back at Berrigan. Speak louder. Whoosh. The beam of light quickly retracted and disappeared with Lazian. You have already summoned the Rainbow Bridge, and you still want me to say shit? Lazian stepped on the light column and walked out of the Rainbow Bridge. At a glance, he saw Heimdall, who was wearing a golden armor like a gold saint. Hi, Heimdall. Lazian smiled and greeted him. Asgard's teleporter Heimdall was not an insignificant little person. His military strength was ranked among the top in the entire Asgard battle sequence. Hello, Mr. Lazian. Heimdall was quite polite to Lazian. He was actually a very gentlemanly person. By the way, what do you think of the suggestion I made before? Lazian asked as he got closer. When he followed Thor to Asgard before, Lazian once made a suggestion to Heimdall, to add a pair of wings to the armor that looked like the Gold Saint's armor. and even designed 12 styles of wings for him to refer to. Unfortunately, Heimdall did not adopt it. This time was the same. Heimdall gave Lazia 2 particularly eye-catching big white eyes in return. Lazia was not ashamed, and was about to leave with a smile. When he reached the door, Heimdall suddenly spoke. The ice box leaking out of Asgard may cause unrest in the 9 realms. Lord Lazia, please think twice before you act. Obviously, Heimdall heard what Lazia said to Bergen and Jotunheim. His clairvoyance and hearing made it easy for him to do this. Don't worry. Lazia turned around and showed his 8 white teeth. Weapons are only murderous weapons in the hands of evil people. Although I dare not say that I am a good person, I am at least a friend of Asgard, a very close one. Heimdall looked at Lazia deeply, nodded, turned around and continued to look into the depths of the universe. Lazia shook his head and walked towards Asgard along the Rainbow Bridge. When he returned to Asgard, Lazia realized that Thor was still fighting in Nornheim and had not returned. He returned earlier than expected. Come to think of it, although it has been more than 2 months since I told Thor that I was going to assess Nornheim, chapter 225. In fact, from the time they separated in Vanaheim to the time Lazia attacked Jotunheim with a spear and returned to Asgard, it was less than half a day. The icebox is stored in Odin's treasury. Although Lazia has the ability to sneak in, or even break in, as a rational friend of Asgard, he still decisively asked Odin for an application. Do you want to visit the icebox? Odin sat crookedly on the wide throne and squinted at Lazia with his only remaining eye. Are you sure you just want to have an academic visit? The treasures in Odin's treasury are very precious. For thousands of years, there have been many people who coveted them. So he built a fighting machine like the Destroyer as a custodian of the treasury. Odin didn't believe that Lazia was different from those who coveted the treasures. When they saw the treasures, they would not be tempted to take them for themselves. Would they really just want to visit them? Academic visits, deceiving the dead. Okay, Lazia put on a pious expression. Sure enough, nothing can be hidden from the wise father of the gods Odin. I really don't just want to visit. If possible, I hope the father of the gods can give me the icebox. Odin snorted expressionlessly. Reason. If the treasure is just placed in the warehouse and covered with dust, it is actually no different from waste. I want to give the icebox a chance and give the earth a chance. At the same time, I am confident that I have the ability to protect it. This is not bragging. Lazia and the Avengers have just protected the cosmic cube on Earth. It is not a problem to protect a lesser icebox. The problem is that Odin doesn't want to give the treasure box to Lazia, even though he saved his 2 sons, helped him save Asgard from Thor 2 days ago, and helped Thor quell the rebellion of the 9 realms these 2 days, and will continue to lead the heroes of Midgard to fight against the evil from the depths of the universe. The more he thought about it, the more Odin felt that he had no reason not to give the icebox. Is there something wrong? Surprising or not? Chapter 229. 2 at a time. Lazia pushed the door of Odin's treasury and walked in alone. Odin did not send anyone to guide or monitor him, but let him go in alone without worry. Anyway, there were not many things in the treasury, and the more powerful cosmic cube was the one Thor had just brought back from Earth. At the end of the treasury, Lazia saw a square box with blue light. In terms of color and shape, it was somewhat similar to the cosmic cube next to it, but it had an extra handle on one side. Instead of reaching out to take the ice box directly, Lazia first used the small universe to sense the surroundings. Sure enough, behind a wall of light next to it, there was a powerful small universe lurking. Lazia was very familiar with the breadth of that small universe. It was the Guardian Armored Destroyer that he had encountered on Earth. When Loki usurped the power of Asgard, in order to keep Thor on Earth forever, he sent 3 destroyers to Earth at once. As a result, under Lazia's activeness, the 3 destroyers not only failed to complete the task, but were all destroyed. The genius Tony, after studying the remains of the destroyer, developed the latest level of the destroyer iron suit based on it. When Thor came here, he still wanted Lazia to find a way to bring back some Asgard's specialty metal. But if he could bring back a living destroyer, I'm afraid that not only Iron Man's destroyer suit, but also the Earth's technology tree would climb a lot. This is definitely a great cause that will benefit the present and the future. Of course, This is actually what Lazai and the Avengers have been doing, and there is nothing to be proud of. But thinking of Odin's constipated expression when he agreed to lend the ice box to him to play with, Lazai knew that it was unlikely that he would give him another destroyer for free. Thor once said that there is not too much metal like Ru even in Asgard, so the number of destroyers must not be too many. 3 have been destroyed on Earth. If he gives away more, Odin will have no one to guard the treasure house. Alas, Lazai sighed. He couldn't just take advantage of everyone. He let Odin go first and borrow the icebox. Lazai was very calm when he walked to the table where the icebox was placed. After all, he had already taken the Mind Scepter inlaid with infinity gems, and the icebox was just a second-level treasure. Environmental transformation, 9 realms teleportation. Maybe this treasure box will have other uses, but Odin and Berrigan don't know. Lazai touched his chin and thought to himself that Odin was very busy, managing such a large chassis, and also had to distract himself from the education of his son and adopted son. He never had much time to study this treasure obtained from the enemy, and Berrigan, a brainless general who charged into battle, would certainly not understand this national treasure so clearly. Well, we can take it back to Tony and Bruce to study it. With these 2 geniuses who are known as the 2 smartest people in the universe, there is nothing that cannot be studied thoroughly. It is indeed a rare treasure. Just as Lazai was thinking, a jumping voice sounded behind him, and then a golden arm stretched out from the side and took the ice treasure box in his hand. This thing seems to be more powerful than your coldness. In his words, it should be able to easily reach absolute zero. It seems that some people will be laid off. Lazai can be sure that this is a completely unfamiliar voice, and the owner of the voice is obviously not a meek and humble person. And the familiar golden arm just now, from the time the arm appeared to the time it took away the ice treasure box, Lazai did not react at all. By the time he realized the problem, the other person had already taken the treasure box away and finished talking. Lazai's clothes on the back were instantly soaked. Fortunately, the person who quietly appeared behind him only took the treasure box. If the other party wanted to take his dog life, he might have been dead now. This is fucking. However, the arm that Lazai had just seen briefly made her heart move inexplicably. The familiar color and style, could it be that the small theater that she hadn't seen for a long time was about to open again? But that was not right. This was Asgard, and the holy cloth box was not brought here. How could it be? Just as Lazai was about to turn around to verify, another strange voice rang out. It was just a short syllable, but Lazai could be sure that it was completely different from the previous one. Hey, you are too perfunctory. Can't you hear that I was mocking you just now? Can't you at least give me a proper reaction? Don't you feel tired of keeping a poker face all day long like this? Not really. Lazai turned around suddenly and saw a gentleman taking the ice treasure box from another man with a more playful expression, and then he took out a pair of glasses from somewhere and put them on, and looked at it seriously. Oh my god, you are wearing glasses. You don't think you can really research anything? Come on, the situation here is different from ours. The playful man shouted exaggeratedly. The gentleman didn't even raise his head. Give it a try. It won't hurt. Okay, whatever you want. The sighing man shrugged, with an expression that said you're good looking and you have the final say. Then he shifted his gaze and began to look around. This is actually Odin's treasure house. Hey, have you heard of Odin's treasure house in Siberia before? The teasing man continued to ignore Lazai's existence and asked the gentleman. I have heard of it. The gentleman looked at the ice treasure box for a while. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if he had encountered some difficulties. The rumors are different from here. The teasing man smiled after he finished speaking. Okay, it's obviously different from here. By the way, he seemed to finally remember Lazai's existence, turned around and asked, are there any god warriors here? Lazai shook his head subconsciously. No, there aren't any. Oh, that's true. The teasing man turned around and began to look at the treasures around him. Hey, this is quite interesting. Seeing the teasing man walking towards the eternal fire on the side, Lazai's mentality was about to explode. From the beginning till now, my aura has been completely crushed. What the hell is going on? I am a hero who defeated the alien fleet and defended the Earth. How come I was completely crushed in terms of momentum in front of these two people? Even if you are more handsome than me, even if you are stronger than me, even if you have a higher status than me in the Saint Seiya sequence, even if you are my predecessors, even if there are two of you at once, well, I am not crushed by your momentum. I just respect you. Respect the old and love the young, who made you so old. The two predecessors. After all, I am also a man who wants to hold on and not leak. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230 Scorpio Aquarius. Looking at the faces of the two people, Lazia definitely didn't recognize them. However, he knew the identities of the two people very well. The golden clothes on them had already betrayed their identities. They were the previous generations of gold saints, Scorpio's Caludia and Aquarius's Dieter. The one with a playful expression was Caludia, a terminally ill patient with a frivolous and cynical personality who felt that no one would obey her, and even dared to pinch the face of the little girl who was the incarnation of the goddess Athena. The one with a gentle expression was Dieter, a well-educated and knowledgeable man who was known as the first wise man in the sanctuary, but his strength was also extremely powerful. Aquarius people seemed to be very elegant and noble. The Icefield nobleman might be their style, just like the Uzayu fist. It was a bit unexpected for Lazia that these two people appeared here together because of the ice treasure box, but it was reasonable when he thought about it carefully. Caludia, a terminally ill patient, had a strange heart disease since birth. The doctor diagnosed that he would not live past the age of 11. However, he survived and became one of the strongest gold saints in the sanctuary. The person who helped him survive was Dieter's teacher, the previous generation of Aquarius gold saint. However, although he became a gold saint, his physical illness could not be eliminated. In order to prolong his life, his heart was cast with a forbidden technique, and the successor, Aquarius Gold Saint Dieter, was the one who maintained and blessed the forbidden technique. Afterwards, for various reasons, the two people, one passionate and the other calm, became a pair of good friends. Even in the Hades mythology LC, they both died in the same copy Atlantis, and in fan fiction and comics, they are often naked. Hugging, forget it, it's a bit uncomfortable. In short, their relationship is like this, so it's understandable that they appear together. Caludia ran to the side to study the eternal flame, leaving Dieter and Lazia looking at the ice magic box. Senior, is there any problem with this thing? Facing Dieter, who was like an ice cube, Lazia couldn't help but interrupt the silence. Dieter raised his head and looked at Lazia in confusion at first. His expression seemed to say, "Who are you?" Fortunately, he recovered quickly and showed a gentle and polite smile. Otherwise Lazia would have cursed. Are all academic wise men like this? Once you enter your own world, your perception of the outside world is infinitely close to zero. Apostrophe Lazia, right? Dieter's smile was very polite. Another meaning of politeness is that it is difficult to approach. He is not like Caludia. Although Caludia speaks carelessly, he makes people feel friendly. Just like now, when Dieter was talking, Caludia came over and put his arms around Lazia's neck, baring his teeth and putting his face less than 10 centimeters away from Lazia's nose, a distance that makes the head-pressing party feel itchy. Ah, come on. Although not very outstanding, you are still a handsome boy. Not bad, not bad. It seems that those guys have some taste. You didn't lower the appearance score of our sanctuary team. Lazia couldn't help but curled her lips. Although the senior seemed to be praising her, it made her feel a little uncomfortable. Could you please take back what you said about not being very outstanding? My name is Caludia, and his name is Dieter. Caludia let go of his hand and stood up straight, smiling. Do we need to introduce ourselves in detail? Lazia hurriedly shook her head. You can guess from the holy clothes that the two seniors are the gold saints of the same generation as Mr. Shin. Yes, Caludia nodded. So you know the purpose of our coming here. Lazia scratched his head. Well, I actually have a lot of questions that are not very okay. Kaludia clapped his hands to interrupt Lazia. In that case, then let's stop talking nonsense and get down to business. No, Senior, I have a few questions I want to deter. How is your research going? Have you figured out anything? Kaludia ignored Lazia and turned to look at Dieter. Dieter frowned and then shook his head. Kaludia spread his hands. See, you can't figure out anything, but you still pretend to be deeply involved. Aren't you tired? Let me tell you, there is not much time left for Zong. For us, who will go first? Dieter lifted his hand, and the ice treasure box fell into Lazia's hand. Your previous holy cloth was the Giant Duke constellation, right? Those two guys, Tongnu and Shen, didn't have any other holy cloths to give you, so they gave you the Giant Duke constellation left by Shui Jing, but it seems that it doesn't match your real constellation. No, it can't be said to be inconsistent, it should be inconsistent. You practiced Tongnu's all things in the world. You should know that the back pattern is the embodiment of a person's natal constellation. The fire bird behind you is not a phoenix, you know it. Lazia nodded. He knew that his back pattern was Suzaku, and there is a difference between Suzaku and phoenix. Maybe you have suspected that you are a phoenix constellation, but unfortunately you are not. As for your own, Dieter adjusted his glasses on the bridge of his nose, looking like he was ready to reveal something explosive. Lazia's eyes lit up. So many gold saints had visited her before, but neither Tongnu nor Shen had ever told her about their natal constellations. Even though Shen was full of emotion at the time, he still didn't mention it. Lazia thought that this would remain a secret until the book was discontinued, but she didn't expect that the old scholar Dieter would reveal the secret. Senior, please tell me what I am. Tell me whether I am a hidden constellation or a resurrection constellation. I can bear it even if I am a god. Dieter paused, as if he had thought about it carefully, and then said, I don't know what your natal constellation is. There seemed to be a sound of something falling to the ground and breaking. Senior, you came all the way from the Saint Seiya world to Asgard in the Marvel Cinematic Universe just to play with me? Lazia puffed his lips, looking unhappy. If you don't turn your words around in the next sentence, I will. After thinking about it, Lazia was a little discouraged. It seemed that he really couldn't do anything to Dieter. But, fortunately, the turning point came. But one thing I can be sure of is that the back pattern on your back is definitely related to your zodiac sign, boss. Lazia couldn't bear it anymore. Didn't you just say that I'm not a phoenix? Among the 88 constellations, are there other constellations that are closer to Suzaku than Phoenix? Dieter's mouth corners suddenly twitched upwards. Who said it must be one of the 88 constellations? What else? Lazia rolled his eyes. The Saint Seiya couldn't even make up 88. If I'm not one of the 88 constellations, then what am I? Could it really be a god? You know where the universe comes from, right? Then, do you know that in that mysterious and ancient country, there are also legends about constellations? The constellation legends of the land of China? Suzaku? Could it be? Chapter 231 I'm going to poke. The modern internationally used constellation division is a complete constellation system that has been gradually improved since ancient civilization, mainly including the myths and epics of Mesopotamia, Babylon, Egypt, and Greece, until the Age of Discovery. By 1928, the International Astronomical Union had unified the division of constellations, strictly divided into 88 constellations in the sky. So frankly speaking, the 88 constellations of Saint Seiya set in the Saint Seiya comics since the mythological era are a bit super mythical. In addition to the reference textbooks of the International Astronomical Union, China has recorded the division of celestial phenomena into 4 images of King Long, Baiyu, Zhuge, and Xuanwu since the spring and autumn period and the Warring States period. Among them, Zhuge constellation is the southern 7 constellations including Jingxiu, Gixiu, Liuxiu, Xingxiu, Zhangxiu, Yixiu, and Xingxiu. By the way, in the Chinese constellation division, Jeju is Yixiu, which belongs to the 7 constellations of Zhuge. Lazia's knowledge of the Eastern astrology only stopped at knowing that there were 4 signs, namely the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. and that there were 7 constellations under each sign. It was a bit difficult for a poor student to know which constellation was under which sign and what each constellation was. So when Dieter said that his constellation might be Vermilion Bird, Lazia's eyes were about to explode. According to the Eastern Division, the Giant Duke constellation does belong to the Vermilion Bird constellation, and the Winged constellation is also called the Winged Fire Snake, which belongs to the fire attribute. Dieter adjusted his glasses and continued to popularize science. But in our sanctuary system, the Giant Duke cloth belongs to the water branch of the ice attribute, which is similar to Aquarius. So, Lazia couldn't help but interrupt. So that's why you said that I am a little inconsistent with the saint cloth. Dieter nodded. Indeed, at this point, the answers to many questions are actually somewhat clear. Because of her Eastern background, or because she is time traveler, Lazia's own attributes do not seem to be completely based on the settings of the Saint Seiya world. Especially after being taught all things in the universe by Dako, this difference was magnified. So there was a situation where the Suzaku pattern appeared on Lazia's back, and he wore the gigantic cloth that did not match his zodiac sign, and he could use multiple attribute attacks such as ice and fire at the same time. According to what Dieter said before, it was not that Dako and his friends did not want to give Lazia the gold cloth, nor that Lazia could not wear the gold cloth, but that they could not take it out. So they had to give him the gigantic silver cloth, which was not low in grade. Mizukage of Gigantic was a good friend of Shinodako and Shin from the same era. It was logical that his cloth was finally distributed by the two of them. Don't forget that Shin is still the current pope. After understanding this, Lazia found that his mind was even more confused. So, Senior, why did you do all this? Why did you give me a cloth and teach me various combat methods? And this is not the world of Saint Seiya. Excuse me. Lazia put on a serious expression. Is there any mission, D.A., waiting for me ahead? If so, I think it's better to tell me so that I can be mentally prepared. Facing Lazia's question, the expression on Dieter's face remained unchanged. He supported his eyes and shook his head calmly. Don't ask me, I don't know. Lazia was a little annoyed. Dieter had a poker face that never changed. It was really hard to tell from his expression whether he was lying or not. But, don't say but, Kaludia interrupted Lazia's question, and raised his wrist to look at the shiny wrist armor. Oh, there's almost no time, hurry up and work. After that, without giving Lazia a chance to refute, he raised his hand directly, and the scarlet nail on his index finger poked at Lazia. While poking, he also shouted at Dieter, "It's all your fault for talking so much nonsense and wasting too much time. I don't care about you anymore. I'll go first." The scarlet nails flashed with a deadly light. Scorpio's special skill, Scarlet Poison Needle, a total of 15 needles. Each needle contains Scorpio's mental toxins, attacking the star points of the human body at an irresistible speed, stimulating and destroying the human body structure, making people slowly lose their 5 senses in pain, and finally become a disabled person. When the 15th needle, the last needle and the strongest needle, Andres, is stabbed, the enemy's blood, 5 senses, spirit and even the microcosm will be completely annihilated. After experiencing so many battles, Lazia has reached a very high level in terms of combat awareness and speed and strength. He even briefly reached the 7th sense in the space gate above New York. However, such strength still has no effect when facing Kaludia's scarlet poison needles, just like when the ice treasure box was taken away before. When the scarlet nails touched his body, Lazia didn't even make a move to resist. "You can't even block my scarlet poison needle. Is it useful to know so much? The key is to improve your strength first. So much nonsense." Kaludia's voice sounded in his ears, but Lazia felt it was far away. The first feeling of a needle entering the body is pain, which is even more amplified than the pain of being pricked by needles all over the pores on the holy cloth box. For a moment, Lazia was even glad that if he had experienced this kind of pain on the holy cloth box at that time, let alone being pricked all over the body, even if he was needled, he would have died. But now, under the tempering of the small universe, his body has reached the level that can withstand this kind of pain. However, although the pain can be endured, His hearing suddenly seems to be wrong. He clearly saw Kaludia next to him, with his face close to his ear, but he didn't know where the voice came from, distant and vague. At this moment, Lazaya realized that there was something wrong with his hearing. Scarlet poison needles. The first 14 needles will not be fatal, but they will destroy the perception of the 5 senses. Your speed and awareness are not good, but your endurance is barely acceptable. So, shall we continue? Although Kaludia seemed to be speaking in a questioning tone, there was no doubt in his hands. His scarlet nails poked directly at the next position. Swish. Lazai wanted to shout, "It hurts, be gentle." But when he opened his mouth, no sound came out. Kaludia had a devilish smile on his face, and his hands kept moving in and out of Lazia's body continuously and quickly. Remember this feeling. Scorpio's attack method is not so fancy. There is no need for fire and ice. We only need one finger to make the enemy move towards death at high speed in the climax. In pain. Next is the most important shot. Andres, are you ready, boy? After poking 14 consecutive needles, Kaludia did not pause, and poked out the last finger without hesitation. In fact, I came back to fill the gap. Chapter 232 Scarlet Poison Needle. While the 2 former gold saints were explaining Lazia's doubts and teaching him skills, Odin and Asgard also sensed the changes in the treasury. Odin may not have the clairvoyance and hearing of Heimdall, but as the god king of Asgard, he can't escape his detection of any disturbance in Asgard. The only difference is whether he wants to get it or not. After Lazai entered the treasury, Odin had been paying attention to him. Although he said he would give him the icebox, there were other treasures in the treasury. Odin didn't send anyone to follow him to give him face, but if he really didn't care, he would be stupid. When Lazia found the destroyer behind the light wall, Odin was not surprised. After all, a strong man who could fight Thor, who had awakened the power of Thunder God and not lose to him, found that the guards of the treasury were nothing. But when the 2 handsome guys in golden armor appeared, Odin was stunned. Even with his power as the God King, he couldn't tell how the 2 people appeared. They seemed to have suddenly fallen out from the cracks in space and appeared in the treasury in just a moment. You know, that was Odin's treasury where he stored treasures, and it was a place where the top treasures of the universe, such as the icebox, the eternal flame and even the infinity stones, were stored. The rigor of such a treasury cannot even be described in words. Even with Odin's power, if he wanted to enter without permission, he would have to work hard. But the 2 people appeared inexplicably, and they appeared after Odin closed the door of the treasury. Was it space teleportation or instant movement? Odin knew nothing about it. That's not all. When Kaludia attacked Lazia, Odin was afraid. Yes, as a cosmic-level powerhouse who had been undefeated in the 9 realms and suppressed the 9 realms for thousands of years, Odin was actually afraid at this moment. The speed of the attack, which was faster than the speed of light, and the huge destructive power contained in it were not much less than his own, and there were 2 people at the first sight. The appearance of these 2 people also reminded Odin of someone. Previously, Heimdall had reported that he had observed a person who could use divine power on Earth, and that person was the Leo Gold Saint Regulus, who had given a small lecture to Lazia. Divine power is the fundamental power of the universe. In Odin's opinion, the microcosm used by Kaludia is very similar to the divine power they use, so he thought of Regulus at the first time. Their dressing style and powerful strength are so similar that Odin would not believe it even if he said there is no relationship. He never expected that there would be such a powerful and numerous strong people hidden behind Lazia, and these strong people could appear quietly. If Lazia took these 2 people to rob the treasury and destroyed Asgard by the way, could the guards in Asgard prevent it? Odin felt uncertain. Fortunately, Lazia didn't know what Odin was thinking at this time, otherwise he would definitely laugh at him. Unsure means that there is still some hope. Even the entire army of Asgard plus Thor couldn't stop the invasion of spicy chicken strips. Now Thor and his 3 best friends are not here, and you think you have a chance to stop the attack of 2 gold saints? What a joke. Lazia doesn't even need to do anything. In their prime, Dieter and Kaludia can flatten Asgard alone. Of course, we are talking about Asgard in the movie world, not the one in the comics. But who can blame this world for the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind. But Odin still leaned on his spear and sat steadily on the throne. He couldn't be unstable. Since he was not completely sure, he would wait and see. Anyway, according to the current situation, these people had no hostility towards Asgard for the time being. And Odin could see that the one called Kaludia seemed to be teaching Lazias skills. The last shot of the scarlet poison needle, Andres, brought the superpower of the previous 14 needles, and those who were hit would die. The last shot that Kaludia gave Lazias was his own improved version of the strongest shot, the scarlet poison needle absolute flame Andres. Compared to the original version, Kaludia's improved version was a fatal blow at the cost of burning his heart and life. To be frank, the destructive power of this improved shot is even comparable to or even exceeds the sum of the original 15 shots. Scorpio's ultimate move, the scarlet poison needle, has always had a disadvantage that has been criticized by everyone, that is, it is necessary to pierce the enemy with 15 shots before killing the enemy, and during this period, it is very likely that the enemy will turn the tables or even kill him. During the Zodiac, Milo's battle with Hyuga is a naked example, excluding the fact that Milo did not want to kill Hyuga from the beginning because of Camus. If Milo had used the fatal blow at the beginning, Hyuga would have been dead long ago. I'm going to use this needle with my belief in victory and at the cost of my life. Even the 3 giants of the underworld can't resist it. Remember, this will become your trump card. Kaludia's finger stopped at Lazia's chest, which corresponds to the heart of Scorpio, Andres. Lazia looked down in horror, but saw that Kaludia's fingers were smooth and slender, and the nails were the original color, and the scarlet spikes disappeared. The finger gently touched Lazia's chest, and Lazia's bad condition disappeared instantly, just like the 14 needles before were an illusion. But Lazia knew that he had a better understanding and memory of the scarlet poison needle in his mind. The next time he met an enemy that he hated but didn't want to kill immediately, he might use this set of skills to treat the other party well. But then again, was the scarlet poison needle designed for torture, so that the enemy would slowly suffer in pain until death? Retracting his fingers, Kaludia's face regained a sunny smile. He turned his head to look at Dieter and said with a smile, "Okay. My mission is completed, and the rest is up to you." It feels so good to be able to fight without restraint. Without the constraints on my heart, I feel a lot more relaxed. It seems like I can have a good fight. Kaludia suddenly looked at the ground curiously. There seems to be something down there. I'll go. Kaludia, Dieter interrupted Kaludia's curiosity. Don't forget our mission. Don't cause trouble. We don't have much time. Oh, Kaludia shrugged. Now you know we don't have much time. What were you doing just now? You were researching and solving problems. If you like being a teacher so much, you might as well take this kid as your student. Why do you have to let Shine take advantage of you? It's because he originally. Dieter rarely retorted, but stopped in time. Turning his head, Dieter still looked at Lazia indifferently. Okay, it's my turn now. Time is short, and I can't teach too much in detail. Fortunately, there is this thing. Its function is somewhat similar to the technique of Aquarius. You can slowly experience it in the future. Lazia nodded seriously. Okay, senior, let's start. I'm ready. As soon as the voice fell, a huge ice block with a length of half a meter, a width of 2 meters and a height of 2 meters appeared on the spot, and Lazia was frozen in it with a serious face. Writing books seriously really pays off. Thank you all for continuing to subscribe. Thank you Bedu Yellen for the 3000 reward. Thank you at 1987516 for the 500 reward. Thank you Life is Like a Dream and Fascinating for the reward. Thank you all for your recommendation votes and monthly tickets. Thank you. Chapter 233 The Secret of Ice. Needless to say, the skills of Aquarius are definitely related to ice. This constellation is a constellation that has developed the ability of ice to the extreme. From Diamond Star to Forgiveness of the Dawn Goddess, Aquarius has only one goal, to turn the opponent into ice slag. First freezing it into ice and then making it into slag. Making ice is obviously nothing for Aquarius. In the original SS, Camus froze the glacier in an ice coffin, but the combined strength of the 4 little strong men could not break it. In the end, Shiryu had to ask for the Libra gold cloth of his teacher Tongnu to split the ice coffin. How powerful is Liber's golden weapon? In the Poseidon chapter, the 7 ocean pillars that support Atlantis on the seabed could not stop the cockroach holding the golden weapon. The ice coffin made of ice coffin has the same defense as Optimus Prime in the sea world, and its sturdiness can be seen. Seeing Lysia being covered in the ice coffin, Calutia frowned and shouted, "Is it necessary to make such a big deal at the beginning? You used the ultimate secret right away. Aren't you afraid that this kid will die in there?" Dieter shook his head slightly and ignored Calutia. Instead, he used his small universe to communicate with Lysia in the ice coffin. "Do you know this move? Aquarius ... ice coffin." Lysia can't be unfamiliar with this square coffin. "I'm afraid no one who has read the original novel will forget it." Dieter nodded. "Yes, it is an ice coffin, but your answer is not accurate, because in addition to being an ice coffin, it is also the ultimate secret of Aquarius, the ice shield. Ice shield? Lysia was dumbfounded. Unlike the Aquarius' greatest secret in SS, which is the forgiveness of the goddess of dawn, in the LC, the greatest secret of Aquarius, according to the Aquarius Gold Saint of Dieter's generation, is the strongest defensive move of the Gold Saint, the ice shield, which is said to be unbreakable even by several Gold Saints. In the LC plot, Dieter finally froze the entire Atlantis Sea at the cost of his own life, and with such amazing strength. His greatest secret is surprisingly a defensive move. Speaking of this, I'm afraid there will be some nitpickers who will come out to refute. "The saints, you saints are so awesome, and the Gold Saints can blow up planets with one punch like a joke, but how can you freeze a sea area and sacrifice your life? This is too weak." Sorry, Atlantis is not an ordinary sea area, but a divine domain ruled by the Sea King Poseidon. It is a place similar to the Holy Land, strengthened and imprisoned by the laws and barriers of the gods. The frozen Atlantis was not actually fighting against nature, but the power of Poseidon, the Sea King. Anything related to God cannot be simply measured by natural laws and physical knowledge. However, after thinking about it, Lysia agreed with this statement, because no matter whether it was the ice coffin or the ice shield, it was said that even several Gold Saints could not break it, although the former seemed a bit boastful. This statement seemed familiar. By the way, Lysia remembered that in the knowledge taught by Shin, the crystal wall seemed to have a similar explanation. It could invalidate the attacks of the Gold Saint level, or even bounce them back. If we compare them horizontally, it seems that the crystal wall is a little more powerful than the ice shield. Lysia didn't know if her guess was right, and it was not convenient to ask for the time being. After all, it was time for teaching. Judging from Dieter's appearance, it seemed that he hadn't finished the introduction yet, so he listened first. The secret of Aquarius is very similar to that of the Giant Duke, both of which are to create and control ice. But there are also differences. The focus of the Giant Duke is to use the sharpness of the ice spear to break the enemy's defense and carry out piercing attacks. For Aquarius, we don't need to break through the enemy's defense to hurt them. What we need to do is very simple: freeze. When you can freeze the movement of atoms, then the so-called defense will collapse. And when you can freeze and condense the air and even the space, then you can withstand any form of attack, because any form of attack cannot penetrate your ice shield. The principle is simple and easy to understand, that is, to use the freezing air to the extreme, freeze atoms, freeze space, and even. Lysia guessed whether the strongest freezing air could freeze time. It is said that there is a waste called Iceman next door. In the comics, he is a master who can even freeze time. As a result, in the movie world, he becomes a soft egg that can be bullied by anyone and has been crushed into pieces by the Sentinels countless times. If Dieter taught Iceman a lesson, would Uncle Wolf not have to go back to 50 years ago? Iceman directly developed his ability to the maximum, and it was not like playing to beat the Sentinels. Of course, if the movie is really played like this, it will be boring. Without plot conflicts, what can we show to the audience? A love triangle? Teacher. Lysia wanted to raise her hand, but found that she was still frozen in the ice and couldn't do it, so she had to give up helplessly. Teacher, I want to know how to freeze the air to the point of freezing atoms, space, and even time. My current ability can only freeze to more than 100 degrees minus. Freeze time? Very creative idea. Dieter shook his head gently. I can teach you how to freeze the air, but how to make the air reach absolute zero requires you to practice and comprehend it slowly in practice. Although I don't know what this ice magic box is made of, its ability is very helpful for you to comprehend the freezing air. It's also your luck. You are born in the fire element. If you don't have the help of this ice magic box, it will be difficult to comprehend absolute zero. As for the freezing time you mentioned, I haven't thought about it before. I'm afraid it depends on you. Lazia said with a wry smile. So, Teacher Dieter, you haven't considered this aspect either. It seems that you, the wisest man in the Holy Land, don't know everything, do you? Dieter's face shook unconsciously, and he looked up at Lazia in the ice coffin. Well, it's almost time. We'll leave first. Don't relax casually. Remember that you have a mission. Don't worry. I understand. I will definitely not let you down, Lazia promised solemnly. Can you let me out now? For a long while, no one answered. Teacher Dieter, are you still there? Mr. Ka? I am most afraid of the sudden silence in the air, especially when a person is frozen in a solid ice coffin. Dieter and Kaludia left quietly, just as they came quietly, without waving their sleeves, leaving only an ice coffin. Lazia in the ice coffin wanted to cry but had no tears. Two uncles, you should let me out first. Ice coffin, even several gold saints can't break this ice coffin. How can I break it? I just entered silver level. Chapter 234 Thor's Triumph. Dieter and Kaludia disappeared, and the Odin treasury became quiet again, except that compared to before, there was a huge piece of ice that sealed the living person's ice coffin. Lazia maintained the posture just now, wanting to cry but not tears. He didn't believe that Dieter didn't have time to let him out. Dieter mentioned the expectations of the people and the mission he was carrying more than once. According to the nature of these seniors, this is definitely a test. In this case, he can only find a way out by himself. Although Lazia was frozen, he could feel the situation in the treasury by relying on his sixth sense. The ice treasure box was placed intact on the high platform in front, and the eternal fire was burning quietly at the other end. Feeling the eternal fire, Lazia remembered that Dieter once said that his life was fire, so compared with the ice treasure box, the eternal fire should be more suitable for him. So can he use the eternal fire to help break the ice coffin that imprisoned him? As soon as this idea came to mind, Lazia suppressed it. If this was a test from Dieter, then he hoped that Lazia could comprehend a deeper level of frozen air usage inside the ice coffin, and would not want him to simply use the fire attribute to break the ice coffin. So, if you want to get out, you still have to rely on yourself. The combat method that Lazia learned from the giant Duke before could only lower the temperature to about -100 degrees, and even if the temperature of this ice coffin did not reach absolute zero, it was very close, at least below -200 degrees. What Lazia has to do now is to work hard to improve his control of frozen air. As long as he can create a temperature lower than that of the ice coffin, he can break its confinement. Just as Lazia was struggling with the ice coffin, Thor returned triumphantly outside the treasure house with a dusty body. Nornheim did not stir up too much waves. Under the conquest of Thor, the god of thunder, it was very likely to be pacified. In the hall, the victorious Thor met his father Odin. The worry on Odin's face made Thor a little confused, but he didn't care too much. The 9 realms have been uneasy recently, and as the king of gods, it is normal for Odin to be worried. Father. In order to dispel Odin's worries, Thor put on a happy expression and said loudly in his magnetic voice with built-in subwoofer, Thor has completed what father entrusted, and I come to report. Odin's face relaxed. Has the issue of Vanaheim been resolved? Thor nodded. Not only Vanaheim, but also Nornheim. They are all safe now. Of course, if you take action, these will definitely be completed faster. After a little flattery, Thor added, in addition, Lazia went to Jotunheim. With his strength, there should be no problem. I believe it won't be long before Jotunheim will become like Vanaheim and Nornheim. Odin did not comment after listening, but did not tell Thor that Lazia had returned. Instead, he nodded. This is the first time that the Nine Realms have restored peace since the destruction of the Rainbow Bridge. They will remember our strength, and you have won their respect and my gratitude." "Thank you." Odin said this, but his expression did not change much. It was hard to tell whether he was truly proud and happy about Thor's growth. Thor did not see anything unusual in his eyes. Odin was always a majestic father who did not show his emotions. It was normal for him to not be able to see his expression. If Odin said those words excitedly at this time, he would suspect that Loki had escaped from the dungeon and used transfiguration to impersonate his father. After praising Thor, Odin waved his hand and said, "Go, celebrate your victory to your heart's content. Eat meat and drink wine with your warriors and enjoy the joy of carnival." Originally, Odin wanted to take the opportunity to talk to Thor about ascending the throne and the matter between him and the Earth woman Jane Foster. Tell him that for the gods who have a lifespan of thousands of years, the Earthlings who only have a lifespan of 100 years are just a passing cloud. His final destination should be the female warrior Sif, chosen by his parents. Sif is his destined wife. The name is so suitable, but the scenes in the treasury just now, and the two golden armored warriors who appeared and disappeared inexplicably, suddenly made Odin lose interest in chatting about family matters. In contrast, he wanted to figure out what Lizaya was. Before, when Odin went to Earth to ask Lizaya to help take care of his two sons, he had a brief exchange with Lizaya about his identity, and knew that his power was a kind of power similar to divine power called microcosm. However, Odin was puzzled by the origin of this power system and those warriors wearing the so-called holy clothes. Is it really the power of Zeus? Lizaya once mentioned the Olympian gods to Odin, and Odin could not help but have some associations. No matter what the truth is, Odin has decided to keep a close eye on Lizaya now. As for other things, even the major event of Thor's ascension to the throne will be postponed. Before he figured out Lizaya's background and position, Odin's heart was always a little panicked. Thor didn't know this. After saying goodbye to Odin, he started to party with the victorious warriors. That night, it snowed heavily in Asgard, but it was nothing for the brave Asgardians. They would not feel cold even if they were shirtless in the snow, so the heavy snow was just an embellishment of their military merits. At the banquet, Volstagg and Fandral, two of the three warriors of Asgard, were deeply involved in their best areas and exerting their energy, one holding a glass of wine and the other holding a beauty. Thor on the other side of the table quietly finished a glass of wine and smiled at the two people pretending to be cool. In the past, such occasions have always been Thor's home court. He has always been the one who can drink the most and attract the most girls at the banquet. But today, he feels out of tune with this scene. It seems that something is missing around him. Where is Lizaya? Hasn't she come back yet? Sif came to Thor with a glass of wine and made small talk. Thor was stunned. Yeah, why hasn't Lizaya come back yet? She should have come back a long time ago. So, I'll go find Heimdall to ask her. After speaking, Thor put down his wine glass and stood up to leave, which made Sif, who had just sat down, feel a little embarrassed. She originally wanted to talk to Thor about life and ideals, but who would have thought that he would just pat his butt and leave? However, with Sif's wisdom, she could more or less see that asking Heimdall about Lizaya's situation was just a cover. Ever since Thor was thrown to Earth by Odin once, his heart has changed, and the source of all this is related to that Earth woman Jane Foster. Sif didn't think about doing anything to Jane, but she was really unwilling to be compared to an Earth mortal. Thor, don't think about running away. You will be mine sooner or later. Apostrophe. Chapter 235 Dark Awakening. A moment later, Thor saw Heimdall, who was alone watching the Nine Realms. You're late, Heimdall said to Thor, which was not surprising. These days, as long as Thor was in Asgard, he would come to Heimdall every night. Let Heimdall, who can see any place and anyone in the Nine Realms, check on the girl far away on Earth for him to see if she is safe. Thor didn't spend much time with Jane Foster on Earth, but sometimes, fate is so wonderful. Some people get along with you day and night, but you only treat her as a friend, family, and sister. while some people you just need to see her and fall completely. This proves a truth that appearance is the most critical factor in determining marriage. The so-called love at first sight is probably just a romantic statement of being attracted by beauty. Don't complain about why you are single anymore. Look in the mirror and you will see it at a glance. Among the three major killers that affect single young people in today's society, ugliness ranks first. That's right, the other two are poor and fat. For Thor now, he can't sleep without hearing from Jane every day to know if she is safe. Coming to Heimdall to ask for Lazia's information is just a cover. Thor doesn't think that Lazia, who can fight against his power of Thor, will have any problems. The only problem is the ice giant of Jotunheim. Heimdall is on duty alone every day and can hardly find anyone to talk to. He is actually quite relieved to be able to chat with Thor. Just when Heimdall wanted to talk to Thor about some recent unpleasantness and new discoveries at work, he was suddenly stunned. "I can't see her." In English, the difference between a man's he and a woman's she is still very obvious. Thor's expression froze for a moment. "Don't scare me, brother, I'm timid." What happened to Jane? Jane did have an accident. When she was studying and working in London and preparing to make a boyfriend to get rid of the emptiness and loneliness left after Thor disappeared, the appearance of a strange natural phenomenon disrupted her normal life trajectory. It was a magical space where the laws of physics were completely messed up. In that space, she was involved in an unfamiliar situation and was penetrated by some strange-shaped soft objects that seemed to have many tentacles. After returning to Earth, Jane found that she suddenly had an inexplicable violent and powerful force. This force not only blew away a policeman who tried to arrest her, but also overturned several police cars. Fortunately, Thor's timely appearance rescued her from the dilemma of self-confusion and being arrested by the police, and she was taken to Asgard to see the real civilization outside the Earth. This experience is extremely subversive for a traditional astrophysicist who grew up on Earth. Fortunately, Thor's appearance and the battle in New York gave her a shot of prevention, so she did not show excessive tension and anxiety. Moreover, when Jane heard that Lazia was also in Asgard, she actually felt a sense of excitement of meeting an old friend in a foreign land, and was eager to meet Lazia. Unfortunately, Thor still thought that Lazia was in Jotunheim, where it was freezing cold. If Jane went there, she might become a hard-boiled person, not a soft girl, so he didn't agree. Lazia, who was missed, knew nothing about this. Not to mention Jane, he felt that he hadn't seen Gwen for a long time. It seemed like a name that hadn't been mentioned for several months. For a moment, he didn't even remember that he had a girlfriend. The ice coffin left by Dieter was much harder to crack than he thought, and it would be difficult for him to get out of it for a while. At the same time, in a corner of the Nine Realms, an ugly guy with a coquettish braid, pale hair, skin, sharp ears and a strange appearance woke up from his sleep. Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves who were born in the endless darkness before the birth of light. As elves, the Dark Elves' appearance is so much better than the Blood Elves in Azeroth next door that they can't even see the taillights of the car. Even the Night Elves with strange looks are 10,000 times better looking than the Dark Elves. Well, looks are not important. Before this, Nicki Minaj had been sleeping for thousands of years. His awakening had a simple and effective activation mechanism, which was the appearance of ether particles. The soft tentacle monster that entered Jane's body was the ether particle. In fact, the ether particle is just a carrier, and its core is the reality gem, one of the legendary infinity gems. Jane, who was brought to Asgard by Thor, had no idea that her accidental collision had actually restarted the enemy of Asgard that had been hidden for thousands of years. As for the resurrection of the Dark Elves, not to mention Thor and Odin, even Heimdall, who could monitor the Nine Realms, did not discover it. It was not until Jane was sent to the operating table in Asgard and was carefully examined by a group of wizards who were good at magic, and the defense mechanism of the ether particles was activated by accident, that Odin thought of a record that he himself had not experienced in person and only existed in history books. The Dark Elves who were defeated by Odin's father and disappeared for thousands of years. For thousands of years, the goal of the Dark Elves has not changed. They want to turn the Nine Realms into a completely dark world through the ether particles. At that time, the Dark Elves, who were born in the darkness, will become the rulers of the entire 9 realms. No one knows how to survive and fight in the darkness better than them. Odin no longer has time to study the problem of Lazian. Compared with the well-intentioned Lazian and the saints, the Dark Elves are obviously a greater threat. They are not only the old enemy of Asgard, but also the enemy of the entire 9 realms. Now that the ether particles have revived again, Odin is not sure whether the Dark Elves will make a comeback, because the history books directly stated that the Dark Elves were defeated, but did not mention whether they were exterminated. Of course, the appearance of the Dark Elves is just a guess by Odin. No one knows whether it will become a reality, so they did not make it known to everyone in Asgard, but kept the discussion within a small range. The people and warriors of Asgard are still immersed in the joy of pacifying the 9 realms. Every day, new prisoners of war are escorted back to the dungeon guards of Asgard, and every night is a carnival night of celebration. All this continued until a captive wearing a ghost-faced totem mask was sent to the dungeon to become Loki's neighbor. Yes, Loki had been living in this dungeon, but compared to the real captives, he was treated better. Not only did he have a clean and tidy single room, he was never short of food and drinks, and there were all kinds of books sent by his mother Frigga to pass the time. Even Frigga would use magic projection to enter the dungeon to chat with Loki to relieve his boredom. However, Loki did not appreciate it. In his opinion, he was born to be a king, not to be imprisoned in this dungeon for low-class prisoners of war as a loser. In a rage, he even shouted such vicious words as "You are not my mother" to Frigga, who loved him the most and his favorite adoptive mother. Although he actually knew in his heart that compared to Odin, who had always been a little wary of him, Frigga truly raised him as her own son. After driving away Frigga's magic projection, Loki looked at the relatively quiet dungeon and felt a little impatient. It shouldn't be so quiet here. Thank you book friend 2019060203140237 for the reward. Chapter 236 Battle of the Asgard. Loki is not a person who likes quietness. If the world is calm every day, it would be too boring. So, when Malekith's men went crazy and made a scene in the dungeon because of drug overdose, resulting in the tragic death of the jailer, the escape of the prisoners, and the whole dungeon falling into chaos, Loki did not rebuke or stop them like an Asgardian prince, but decisively became a guide. Therefore, the drug-taking maniac was able to escape Thor's suppression and quickly reach the core area of Asgard. Loki's guide may be a prank, wanting to have some fun for Odin and Thor, but he didn't expect that the person who was killed in the end was Frigga, his mother who loved him the most. Unfortunately, when he realized this problem in the movie, it was too late. At this time, the chaos in the dungeon continued. Although Thor brought his men to the scene in time, the instigator, the last sacrificer of Malekith's men, had already walked towards Asgard along the road pointed by Loki. Outside the dungeon, Malekith led the Dark Elf Legion in a stealth-capable sword-shaped aircraft, and successfully broke through Heimdall's defense, preparing to cooperate with the sacrificer to take down Asgard. Their plan was very successful. No matter how good Heimdall was at fighting, he was only one person and could not stop the large number of sword-shaped aircraft. The Dark Elf flying acrobatic troupe used its superb flying skills to not only rotate, jump and shuttle freely between the gaps of Asgard's peculiarly shaped buildings, but also miraculously avoided Asgard's anti-aircraft artillery group. Even Asgard's unmanned ship-shaped aircraft was suppressed by the swords of the Dark Elves. On this day, Asgard became a joke from inside to outside. If no outsiders knew, everything would be fine. As long as the attack of the Dark Elves was repelled, Asgard could whitewash this battle to its heart's content, and it didn't even care about the Dark Elves' sophistry and slander. Unfortunately, there was an outsider in Asgard at this time, and he was an earthling from a land that was considered barbaric by Odin and other Asgardians. Just when Odin was overwhelmed by the attacks from inside and outside, a voice sounded in his mind. "Respected Asgardian God King, is there anything I can do for you?" Odin was very familiar with this voice. It was the earthling Laziah from the barbarian land. Humphrey. Odin snorted heavily, and his previous idea of resolving the battle before Laziah broke the ice coffin and not letting this guy laugh at him was shattered. "No need, they are just some jumping clowns. The warriors of Asgard are enough to deal with them. You should find a way to solve your own troubles first. Odin was not bragging. As a god king who ruled the 9 realms for thousands of years, he had the confidence to say such words. Besides, Lozi was still frozen in the ice coffin. How about getting out first and thinking about other things? No problem. Actually Lozi wanted to say that he could have gotten out of the ice coffin a long time ago, but for some reason, he didn't want to get out for the time being. Unexpectedly, Odin suddenly got angry and shouted in a tough manner, "I don't want to say the same thing again. This is not Earth, young man." The pride and stubbornness of the God King were fully displayed at this moment. Lozi did not speak again. He remembered that in the original work, even if Frigga died, even if Asgard might be dragged into the abyss of war and destruction, Odin still disagreed with Thor's proposal to take Jane directly to Malekith to take the war away from Asgard. In the eyes of this powerful God King who has lived for more than 5,000 years and ruled the 9 realms for thousands of years, nothing can be compromised. Even if the warriors of Asgard fight to the last soldier, they must fight to the end. After asking for trouble, Lozi calmed down and continued to compete with his ice coffin. In fact, he could have gotten out of the ice coffin a long time ago, but because the ice coffin was made by the previous generation of Aquarius Gold Saint, it would contain some of Dieter's understanding of Aquarius and freezing air, which would be of great help to his growth. The opportunity was rare, so he never came out. After the riot in the dungeon, his little universe was released, and he had some understanding of the current situation of Asgard. He knew that he should have entered the plot of Thor 2, and the invasion of the Dark Elves began. Lozi came to Asgard as a guest and received Odin's gift, the icebox. Lozi had no way to repay him, so she wanted to help solve the trouble, but Odin didn't appreciate it. "That's fine, as long as you don't regret it later." The riot continued. The invading aircraft formation successfully broke through the defense of Asgard, and the sacrificer also entered the core area of Asgard and destroyed the core of Asgard's energy shield, causing Asgard to be completely exposed to the enemy's attack. Malekith successfully entered the interior of Asgard and successfully found Jane, who was attached to the ether particles, and her temporary protector Frigga. As a result, what Malekith could not forgive was that the Jane he found was actually transformed by Frigga's magic. Angry and exploded, Malekith exploded on the spot. "You dare to play tricks on me, woman, you are courting death." "Where are the ether particles?" Malekith asked, gritting his teeth as he suppressed his anger. "I will never tell you." Even if she was controlled by the sacrifice, Frigga would not compromise. The women of Asgard were no weaker than men. "I believe you." After Malekith finished speaking, the sacrifice held the sword forward. "No." A roar sounded in the distance, and at the same time, a lightning bolt as thick as a bucket flew from a distance and hit Malekith's face directly. The huge destructive power of the lightning instantly burned half of Malekith's face, but it still could not calm the man's anger. Thor watched his mother being stabbed by the sacrifice. "Wait a minute." Thor, who followed the lightning, glanced at the silver figure beside the sacrifice, and then turned to look at his mother who was looking at him happily. "Mother, are you okay?" Frigga was instantly unhappy. "This silly son, why do you seem surprised that I'm okay? Do you feel comfortable only when I'm stabbed to death?" Thor did not sense Frigga's resentment, but looked at Lozi beside him with surprise. "Why are you here?" Lozi was playing with a dagger in his hand. With a light tap of his finger, a layer of ice instantly formed on the tip of the sword. The ice spread upward along the blade and soon covered the entire dagger. With another light flick of his finger, the dagger instantly shattered into ice chips. Shrugging his shoulders, Lozi said with a look of grievance, "To be honest, I have wanted to come for a long time. I asked the God King for permission before, but he disagreed and said he wanted to solve the trouble here himself." But looking at the situation, Lozi turned his head and glanced at Frigga. It seems that he didn't handle it very well. Frigga's face was covered with a dark cloud at some point. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237, Transformed into Silver Arrow. I swear to God, Lazia's words just now were just casual remarks, without any provocation. Absolutely. Thor has arrived, but the conflict in Asgard has not stopped. The core of the energy barrier was destroyed, and Asgard was completely exposed to the enemy. It was not only Malekith the Sacrificer who broke into Asgard, but also the army of the Dark Elves. They had more advanced high-energy weapons than Asgard. Under their attack, the armor and shields on the Asgard warriors became decorations, and they couldn't even withstand a single blow. Not only that, the Dark Elves also had a grenade that was even more unsolvable and almost a bug. After the explosion, it could form a small black hole and suck in anything within a few meters. According to the later performance in the movie, it seems that even if Odin was affected by the explosion of this grenade, he would have almost no chance of survival. The black technology is so powerful and terrifying, and the weapon with such great lethality was just the conventional standard weapon of the ordinary infantry of the Dark Elves. I really don't understand how the Dark Elves lost back then. It should be because of Malekith's IQ. Thor took his mother from Lazia. With tears in his eyes, he looked up and down, left and right. After confirming that Frigga was really not injured, he was relieved. But despite this, Thor was furious at the two villains who almost killed his mother. You bastards should all die. There was a flash of lightning in Thor's eyes, and the sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds. Countless electric snakes shuttled through the clouds, a scene of the end of the world. The bastards in Thor's mouth, according to the plot in the movie, should have hugged each other and jumped off the building at this time. Then Thor would violate his father's order to release Loki. The two brothers took Jane to the world of the Dark Elves. After a carefully planned but unexpected battle, Loki pretended to die, and Thor and Jane went to Earth. Finally, Greenwich of the British Empire became the place of the decisive battle. After a dangerous battle, justice defeated evil, and Thor gave up his kingdom and took the beauty home. Such a plot can be performed smoothly for 2 hours, and some bad writers can even water it for 30 or 50 chapters. Unfortunately, there was another Lazia on the scene. The plot with a time traveler usually collapses to the point of being completely unrecognizable. At this time, the Sacrificer did not get the opportunity to escape with his master, because his master's spicy chicken shreds, which were half-grilled by charcoal on tender on the outside and sprinkled with pepper, salt and cumin, were being stepped on by Lazia's face and pressed under his feet. Malekith, who had been prepared to make a comeback for thousands of years, lay on the ground like a dead dog, motionless. Fortunately, he had lost consciousness, otherwise he would probably be angry to death at this time. Roar! You bastards all deserve to die. The Sacrificer shouted the same line as Thor in a very uncreative way, and then turned into a bulldozer and rushed over here. Kill these two bastards and leave with the master first. The lightning in Thor's eyes disappeared instantly. Although he wanted to roast the Sacrificer to medium rare, which was better than the spicy chicken strips, his mother was still beside him. In order to prevent Frigga from being hurt by mistake, Thor hugged her and flew away. Fuck. Lazia originally wanted to see Thor rush up to fight the Sacrificer head-on, but he didn't expect Thor to turn around and run away without any organization or discipline. Lazia didn't really like to rush, and she didn't want to fight this giant boss monster who was obviously a physics department. She immediately flashed and disappeared from the spot. Teleported, and the charcoal-grilled spicy chicken strips also disappeared at the same time. The Sacrificer didn't hit anyone. The huge inertia generated by the powerful kinetic energy made him directly cross the entire room, crashed through the wall on the other side, and flew out. In the air, the Sacrificer looked back with difficulty, looked at the empty ground, and shouted unwillingly, "Go!" Boom. Accompanied by huge construction waste, the Sacrificer fell heavily on a square. This square was not big in Asgard, because the architectural style here was tall, big and rough, but it was as big as a football field, enough for a heavyweight duel. The Sacrificer stood up from the construction waste and looked up to see two people tearing each other apart, as if they had a fierce quarrel. A closer look showed that the two people quarreling were Thor and Lozi, whom he had just seen. The sacrificer's small brain cells were a little confused. Is this an internal conflict? He guessed randomly. Thor and Lozi would naturally not fight each other, they just had some disputes over who would play. I'm doing this for your own good. Really, you have to believe me, Lozi advised earnestly. Logically speaking, the Dark Elves broke into Asgard and almost killed Frigga. As the heir to the throne and the son of man, it was natural for Thor to go up and fight, but Lozi disagreed, because he still remembered the miserable scene in the movie where Thor was pressed to the ground by the sacrificer and rubbed hard, and the ground was full of sparks. That was in the world of the Dark Elves, and only Loki and Jane, the two people who loved Thor the most besides his parents, were there, and they would not tell anyone. But if Thor was beaten like a grandson in front of all the Asgardians here, how could he inherit the throne smoothly in the future? Introduce him when you go out later. This is our new king, Thor the Thunder God. Oh, I know, it's the Thor who was raped 100 times by the Dark Elves in the square. Don't you want to save face, Thor? But Thor, who had never experienced any face breaks, didn't understand Lozi's painstaking efforts at all. And he had to do it himself no matter what. These bastards almost killed my mother. I must give them a taste of their own color and let them accept the judgment from Asgard. Lozi helplessly turned her eyes to Frigga behind her. Auntie, you should persuade her. Frigga smiled but said nothing. If Thor listened to her, he would not be her son. The reckless god Thor. Lozi had no choice but to turn his attention to Jane. Before, in the room, Frigga had used magic to create an illusion of Jane, and the real Jane was placed in a safe place. Now with the appearance of Thor and Lozi, there is no place safer than here. Jane has ether particles in her body, which will automatically counterattack against behaviors that may harm the host body. However, if it does not harm the body and only guides the consciousness, it will not cause its counterattack. Lozi and Jane are also friends. So naturally he would not confuse her mind to let her do such a shameless thing as a moon-changing clothes dance. He only needs to use his small universe to gently ding. Jane fell on her back. Your wife fainted, Lozi reminded Thor, and when Thor turned around to look, his body had turned into a silver arrow and rushed towards the sacrificer. The silver arrow hit, and the sacrificer opened his mouth excitedly. Chapter 238 Alsace. The speed of the silver arrow was very fast, exceeding twice the speed of sound, but it was still too far compared to the speed of light. When the silver arrow incarnated by Lozi was still sprinting in the air, a flash of lightning had already brushed past him and hit the roaring mouth of the sacrificer. After a flash, a loud noise and a fierce explosion, the sacrificer was directly knocked into the air, rising more than 10 meters before falling heavily, smashing a huge spider-web-like crack on the ground paved with boulders. Brother, you, Lozi stopped and spread his hands helplessly, can you give me some face? Spicy Chicken Shreds is half dead. This has become the biggest boss of this plot. Shouldn't such a battle be left to me? I am the protagonist of this book. Thor turned a deaf ear to him. Driven by the Meow Hammer, his body flew directly over and hammered the sacrificer in the pit. Lozi turned his head and got the answer from Frigga, who was holding Jane. That's my son. The day you were born, the whole of Asgard was calling your name, Thor. I am proud to watch you grow up day by day. Although you are naughty sometimes, you will eventually become the embodiment of justice. We have always ruled the 9 realms with more than just force, but also wisdom and courage. I believe you will become the best leader. One day, our lives will finally reach the end, and you. It's really hard for Frigga. One look needs to express so many meanings, but Lozi actually understood it. Retracting his fist, Lozi completely became a spectator. This battle belongs to the future king of Asgard, Thor. No matter whether he wins with overwhelming force or with great difficulty, that is the way he should go, and die. Lozi turned around and raised the corner of her mouth slightly, and I will try my best to let these old couple see the day when Thor is crowned as king. Damn it, in the end I am still a nanny for Odin's son. Isn't it too cheap for Odin to only charge him an ice magic box? Fortunately, I have more. Cough cough, I am a kind and upright person. Definitely, On the scene, when lightning flashed in Thor's eyes, the xenon headlights on his armor also turned on the high beam mode, and the power of Thor was completely released. The once arrogant sacrificer in the movie became a target, but the sacrificer was the ace pioneer in the war thousands of years ago after all. The black man named Algrim had his strength strengthened countless times, and his defense was so strong that the destructive power of lightning was reduced to the extreme. A strong and thick lightning that was enough to destroy the entire square hit the sacrificer, who stood up desperately, but it only knocked him out. Although it knocked down countless buildings, it did not make him lose his combat effectiveness. Under the totem mask, the sacrificer's face could not be seen, but the blood on his chest showed that it was not as easy for him to block this attack as it looked. You have to know that he broke through the dungeon all the way to the palace where Frigga was, and even took the time to destroy the energy barrier core in the middle. During this whole process, he was not hurt at all. Pushing away the bricks and stones on his body, the sacrificer walked out of the ruins with majestic steps as if nothing had happened. The bloodstains made him look even more hideous. Roar! Ugh! The sacrificer was about to roar to boost his momentum, but suddenly his throat stopped and he almost choked to death. Asshole! Asshole! Looking at the scene behind Thor, the sacrificer went crazy. Thor didn't know why the other party was like this, but it didn't stop him from rushing forward with a roar. It would be boring if the enemy was too easy to be knocked down. Thor, who rushed forward, didn't know that behind him, Lazian, who had no chance to play, was holding up the unconscious Malekith with one hand and slapping him with the other hand. He was muttering while slapping him. Wake up quickly, your men are almost dead, get up and fight with me. You can't let me leave without any performance. So many people are watching, how embarrassing. Wake up, spicy chicken shreds. I tell you, if you don't wake up, I will deduct your money, 10,000 at a time. Just ask if you are afraid. Fuck you. How dare you be the boss of others when you are such a weak chicken? It's too embarrassing for the Dark Elves. You have disgraced the face of the tribe. Don't tell me that the Night Elves are from the Alliance. They don't have such distant relatives as the Dark Elves, and they can't afford to lose face. If a single egg knew that there was a trash with a race name similar to theirs being beaten like a dead dog here, it would have jumped over to kill it, and would be willing to be imprisoned for another 10,000 years for this. Under Lazia's friendly persuasion, Malekith finally woke up slowly, opened the eye on the half of his face that was originally intact but now swollen like a pig's head, and said to Lazia with disdain, "Humphrey, stupid earthlings." Although the contact was brief, he could tell the difference between Asgardians and earthlings. After waking up from his deep sleep, he had once learned about the current 9 realms, so he still had some knowledge. Lazia smiled freely, politely threw Malekith to the ground, raised his leg and started to step on him. "I asked you to scold the earthlings, and the earthlings provoked you. You are a human being and dare to scold stupid earthlings. I give you face. Come on, smart dark elf, get up and fight back against me. Get up and punch my chest with your little fists." Malekith lay on the ground without saying a word, but his palm, which was paralyzed on one side, quietly opened and pressed the palm down on the ground. Not far from them, a strange dark red substance quietly appeared on Jane, who was held by Frigga, and flowed down her body and quietly into the ground. Lazian, who was beating Malekith, and Frigga, who was focusing on Thor fighting the sacrificer in the distance, did not notice all this. This may be the legendary darkness under the lamp. Time does not stop, and the beating continues. Judging from Lazia's enthusiasm for stepping on people, I am afraid that she will not be exhausted until the next month or the next month after the break. In the middle of the square, Thor's battle with the crazy sacrificer has entered a white-hot stage. The lightning special effects are desperately covering the screen, and the walls and floors of the nearby buildings have become shattered and miserable as if they have been demolished. Thor did not live up to the name of Thor after all. With the power of Thor appearing in advance, he hammered the mask and armor on the sacrificer into slag. At this time, the sacrificer only had a few pieces of cloth with a strong sense of harmony hanging on his body. Fortunately, he did not become a chicken sacrificer. His face was not much different from Malekith on the ground. His strong black body was covered with dust and blood. The increase brought by the curse had basically disappeared. Even if Thor stopped hammering him, the sacrificer would soon die. Malekith pressed the ground with one hand and clenched his fist with the other hand. It's almost there. It's almost there. Algarim, you must hold on. The darkness will surely come. And the era of us dark elves is coming. The whole universe will tremble in the darkness. If you die, I will let the whole of Asgard be buried with you. Dark red particles slowly seeped out from the surface and drilled into Malekith's palm silently, while Malekith, with a hideous face, slowly raised the corners of his mouth. Chapter 239 Frostmourne. Although Malekith was in great pain, he was very excited in his heart, because it would not be long before he could take back the Dark Elves' artifact, the ether particles. With the ether particles in his hand, not to mention the guy who was lying on him, even Odin was no match for Malekith. That's right, at this moment, Lizai was leaning over, and from a distance it looked like she was lying on Malekith and rushing forward to meet him. Malekith was disdainful in his heart. Even if you were so close, how could a stupid earthling like you know through the secrets of the great Dark Elves? You stepped on me 181 times in total. Just wait, I will definitely return them to you without missing a single one. Hey, what is this? Lizai stood up and asked. Malekith was startled when he heard Lizai's words, but because of his posture, he couldn't look back, but the cold breath that slowly seeped into his palm calmed his uneasy heart. Closing his eyes and ignoring Lizai's pretentiousness, Malekith urgently needed time to completely integrate the ether particles so as to start the upcoming war. You all have to die. Malekith had already begun to imagine the scene of himself absorbing the ether particles and killing everyone and ruling the 9 realms. The long-cherished wish of thousands of years was finally going to be fulfilled at this moment. Although the process of taking back the ether particles was a bit torturous and even unbearable, who cares? History is written by the victors. As long as he ruled the 9 realms, Malekith would be an omnipotent king in the history books, the king of the entire 9 realms. Malekith was a little trembling with excitement. He was forced to sleep for 5,000 years and was forced to flee his hometown. Now, the 9 realms will become my territory. How dare you do this to me? You are courting death. H.U. Malekith, who was a little trembling with excitement, suddenly sneezed for some reason. This sneeze made him a little confused. It was almost impossible for a dark elf to get sick. What happened? Malekith, who found that the situation seemed not good, could no longer hide it. He quickly turned over his palm that was pressed on the ground, and then he was surprised to find that what penetrated into his palm was not ether particles, but a wisp of freezing air wrapped in frost. But in a moment, his palm was quickly covered with frost at a speed visible to the naked eye, and then half of his arm had already felt it. Where did this freezing air come from, and where are the ether particles? Malekith thought of something and turned around hurriedly, and saw a ball of dark red particles floating in Lizai's palm. The ether particles, the treasure of the Dark Elves, were actually controlled by a stupid earthling. When did it happen? And how could this happen? Lizai smiled and nodded. I really should thank you very much. To be honest, if it weren't for you, I really don't know how to get this thing out of Gian's body safely. He was not lying. If the scientists in Asgard couldn't handle it, he, a poor student, naturally couldn't do it. In addition, when Lizai traveled through time, Avengers 4 had not yet been released. Malekith was desperate. The ether was his biggest support and his last chance to turn the tables. Now, let alone controlling the 9 realms, he was afraid that he had no hope of escaping Asgard. When he tried to control the ether through secret methods, he found that an inexplicable energy cut off his connection with the ether. Why is this happening? Ah, no. An unwilling cry came from a distance, breaking the thoughts of several people. The sacrificer who almost broke through all the defenses of Asgard was still no match for Thor's hammer. With infinite regrets, he ended his long and sinful life. Algrim, Malekith shouted angrily, but anger could not enhance his strength. Moreover, Lizai next to him could not stand others shouting around him. He waved his hand and frost was sprinkled with freezing air. The noise is so loud that my head is about to explode, Lizai muttered while holding her ears. In an instant, Malekith turned into an ice sculpture with a screaming expression, and the surface was covered with frost that was freezing cold. Even with Frigga's strength, she had to take a few steps back. In the frost, there was sadness. Retreating to a safe distance, Frigga looked at Lazian, who had caused all this, with some fear, and couldn't help but admire his strength in her heart. Fortunately, Asgard has always had a good relationship with Midgard, otherwise it would be too terrifying if such a person became an enemy. Is there anyone in Asgard who can stop Lazian now? Frigga glanced at Thor in the distance and shook her head helplessly. Maybe she can. What a pity. Thinking of the girl who had followed her father and made countless contributions, Frigga couldn't help but sigh. Without the leader Malekith and the general Algrim, the Dark Elf army was completely scattered without a leader, and it was only a matter of time before they were wiped out by the Asgard warriors. And these have nothing to do with Lazian. What he has to do now is to study the ether particles, or the reality gems in the ether particles. The ether particles are not equivalent to the reality gems, but the carriers of the gems. Just like the cosmic cube in the mind scepter, the infinity gems themselves cannot be controlled and absorbed by people. Anyone who has tried to do so, no matter how powerful, has been blown up by the powerful force contained in the gems. Lazian naturally knows this, so he didn't think about getting the gems out of the ether particles. Anyway, Malekith is about to die, and no one will compete with him for control of the ether particles through secret methods. There are not many opportunities for the reality gems to be shown in the movie, only a few scenes. One is that Thanos used it to forge the scene of the Collector's treasure house, so that the sand sculptures of the Guardians of the Galaxy fell into the trap. The other is to use the gems to cut the soy sauce party of the Guardians of the Galaxy into cubes. Other than that, there is basically nothing. Of course, due to the length of the movie, unless it exists as a clue that runs through many movies like the Cosmic Cube, other gems will not have many opportunities to appear, and even their functions are not introduced in detail, and many things need to be explored by themselves. Lazian is not very worried about this. He has come into contact with the Mind Scepter before, and he is very familiar with the fact that his own small universe will have a certain fit with the Infinity Stones. So when the ether particles were in his hands, he quickly figured out some of the functions. The Reality Stone, as the name suggests, is to influence and change reality, and can even turn fantasy into reality. Fantasy into reality. What is this concept? Can it be possible to turn out characters that do not exist in this world out of thin air? For example, Athena? Chapter 240 Ether Particles. Use the Reality Stone to materialize an Athena? Lazian was frightened by his own bold idea. Let's not talk about whether it can be materialized or not. Once Athena is really brought here, how should Lazian treat her? It is impossible to be a slave to her, even if she is a goddess. Although Lazian respects the previous generations of Gold Saints and is very grateful for their selfless teaching, it does not mean that he will easily recognize Athena as his master and fight for her with the Hades army. It's not that he is afraid of death, but he doesn't want to die. It's not worth it. More than half of the saints in SS died in vain. Since he doesn't want to be a lackey for Athena, what can he do by materializing her? What can he do? Athena is a foreign goddess. Who knows what unpredictable consequences will occur if he kills her? It's not okay to keep bleeding to upgrade the holy clothes. Athena, who is a goddess, naturally can't be raised by Lazian as a blood slave to upgrade equipment, without awakening the child form of Athena's will. I don't know if the blood is useful. Who has the heart to cut such a young girl and bleed her? Lazian is really not a pervert. In short, it is definitely impossible to materialize Athena. Not only subjectively, Lazian secretly tried it and found that the reality gem can't materialize Athena at all. I don't know if it's a problem with the program or the operation. Of course, this is the best. At least Lazian doesn't have to worry about this problem. If the goddess can't be materialized, then what about other life forms, such as a golden mouse, black ear tips, red blush, and a long lightning-shaped tail? Okay, it's you. Show up. Pikachu. Pikachu? Don't get me wrong. These three words were muttered by Lazian, and there was nothing in front of him. Not even a single mouse hair appeared. Looking at the ether particles in his hand, Lazai really wanted to treat it like a fool and throw it to the ground. It can't even materialize a mouse. What use is it to me? Can a dignified infinity stone only create sleight of hand and turn people into blocks? You are not much better than Steve in Minecraft. I just want to ask you, do you deserve the title of Infinity Stone? Or is the meaning of your existence just to make up the number of other gems? Collect 6 to summon the purple potato spirit. That simple. Speaking of which, in the movie, the ether particles only played a slightly stronger strength when they were in the hands of Malekith, relying on various inexplicable sprays to beat Thor to the ground. So, if you want to exert the power of the real gem, you have to learn from Malekith to absorb the ether particles into your body. Lazai gave up this uninteresting approach after a little thought. As a man, he would never agree to let some strange things enter his body. Don't even think about it. If nothing unexpected happened, the ether particle should be sent to the universe collector by Asgard for safekeeping according to the original plot, because the 2 infinity stones cannot be too close to each other. Similarly, the ether particle cannot be brought back to Earth by Lazai because there is already a mind scepter on Earth, which contains the mind stone. But to be honest, thinking of the weird and weak look of the universe collector in the movie, the unfortunate black thick eyeliner and the weak combat power of only 5, Lazai really didn't want to send the gem to him for safekeeping. It seems to be useless except for its reputation, and it will only benefit Thanos in vain. In this case, it is better to hide it first, and then tell Odin that it is missing, and refuse to admit it. I don't believe that Odin can really turn against me, but where to hide it? Lazai looked down at the silver holy cloth on his body. Unfortunately, the storage space that is standard for time travelers did not appear here, which made him think he was a fake time traveler. However, the armor should have a certain storage function hidden in it. Otherwise, when the 5 little warriors fought against the 5 little dark warriors in the battle for the Sagittarius armor, the dark warriors did not hold the armor in their arms, but after being killed, the gold armor parts were exposed. Obviously, the armor parts were hidden somewhere during the battle. This should be considered a bug, but what if it is not? It is better to be safe than sorry. Lazai was thinking about whether to find a storage space where the armor might be hidden to hide the ether particles, and then he saw the ether particles began to penetrate into his armor and disappeared after a while. At the same time, he suddenly felt that there was a slight change in his Megatron armor, but he couldn't tell what kind of change it was. It was really hidden, although it was not quite the same as Lazai imagined. It was not hidden in the suspected storage space, but directly penetrated into the armor like Malekith absorbed the ether particles in the movie. Although I don't know what changes will happen to the armor, at least I don't have to worry about hiding the real gem. Looking up, Lazai put on a bright smile to Frigga who had been watching and Thor who hurried over. I didn't expect to experience so many things this time in Asgard. This guy must be of great origin, like the frost giant King Laufey, who is your 1,000-year enemy. Thor had told Lazai about Laufey, so it was okay for him to tell him. He could only pretend not to know Malekith. Thor said uncertainly, he should be Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves that my father mentioned. Frigga nodded and agreed with him. Lazai looked up at the turmoil that was about to subside, and couldn't help sighing at the ruins. I didn't expect Asgard to suffer so many hardships today. Fortunately, I arrived in time, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Before anyone else mentioned it, Lazai shamelessly called out his own credit. He didn't feel embarrassed. Anyway, he didn't lie. If it weren't for him, Frigga would have been dead by now, and the troublemaker Malekith and the sacrificer would have run away. Of course, he didn't say this purely to brag, but to remind Thor and the others that I helped so much. It doesn't matter if I take away an ether particle, anyway, you can't protect it. It's better to give it to me than to the collector. Thor didn't say anything. After confirming that Malekith couldn't get rid of the ice sculpture for a while, he nodded to Frigga and left with the hammer. The war was not completely extinguished, and he still had to help to end it. Lazai bowed slightly to Frigga. My lady queen of gods, I'll go around and see if there are any fish that have slipped through the net. Their stealth fighters may be able to hide from Heimdall's eyes, but they can't hide from my little universe. Frigga nodded politely. Then I'll trouble you. "Your Excellency Lazai." Look at how polite the Queen of Gods is. Unlike that old man Odin, he has an imperative tone when he asks for help, and then turns his face when he doesn't help. With such a good temper, you are very suitable to be a mother-in-law. Lazai shook her head and turned away. Chapter 241. Do you need foreign aid? 120. Old High, are you really not going to consider my suggestion? If you add wings to your armor, you won't be so passive this time. You can reach those invisible spaceships no matter how high they fly. On the Rainbow Bridge, Lazai and Heimdall sat side by side, looking at the Asgard in the distance. As far as the eye can see, there are many ruins, and even piles of spaceship fragments are scattered on the bridge not far away. The battle has been completely settled, but the damage caused by the Dark Elves is much greater than the time when Loki lured Laufey in. After all, Laufey only came in a few people, and he also did murderous things, while the Dark Elves directly opened a huge invisible space elevator, and the destructive power is incomparable. Malekith is also ignorant. It was originally agreed that the inside and outside would cooperate to snatch the ether particles, but as soon as the elevator was opened, it was disrupted by a guy who shouldn't be here. Not only did he fail to snatch the ether particles, but he also turned into an ice sculpture. The Dark Elves really became history. Of course, there are still achievements, and it can be foreseen that Asgard's post-war reconstruction will not be a small project. Maybe we can get a construction team from Earth to help. Cooperating with Asgard will not only expand the social circle of Earthlings, but we may also be able to get some obsolete equipment and construction waste from here. Lazai was thinking wildly. Many things are waste and garbage to Asgard, but they are high-tech technologies to Earth, such as those anti-aircraft laser cannons and flying ships with unknown power that ignore gravity. In particular, the huge energy shield that can wrap up the entire Asgard is estimated to have a defense power that is not much different from the crystal wall. Well, for an attack power of 100, there is not much difference between a defense of 500 and a defense of 10,000. These are all good things. In the hands of Tony and others, the technology of Earth will probably rise sharply. If the shield can really be reproduced, when the war comes, Lazai's combat power can be completely liberated and fully devoted to the offensive end, without having to prop up the crystal wall before attacking like in the Battle of New York to protect the city from sudden and direct destructive blows. And Lao Hai, can you help me get someone here? Lazai hoped that Tony would not come alone, but with a steel formation. Those tin cans are good at both demolition and infrastructure construction. Heimdall shook his head at first, denying Lazai's re-mention of the old story. It was not that he did not want to fly, but that adding wings to the armor would not have any effect except making himself look like a sand sculpture. If he wanted to fly, he could do it without wings. Asgard's technology could do it, and it was nothing more than miniaturizing the flying ship. Who do you want to bring here? After denying, Heimdall raised a question. Asgard is a bit chaotic now. If it is not someone you are particularly familiar with, it is better not to bring it here casually. Asgard, which had just been invaded, was temporarily uneasy and could not withstand the twists and turns for the time being. Don't worry, it is absolutely trustworthy. Thor knows it. Lazai patted his chest and promised. It just so happened that Lazai was also preparing to return to Earth recently. Although he had not been out for a long time, he had a lot of experience. From Asgard to Vanaheim and then to Jotunheim, he saw the Aesir, the Vanir, the Frost Giants, and the Dark Elves. In less than half a month, he had so much experience that it was unimaginable. With the current technology of Earthlings, it takes more than a week to go to the moon, and more than half a year to go to Mars, but Lazai traveled through 3 alien planets in less than half a month. This is the domineering nature of the Rainbow Bridge. As a human, going to Asgard is not something that Lazai and Heimdall can decide casually. In the end, they still have to ask the officials for instructions. At present, Thor is the one who makes the decision in Asgard. After the invasion of the Dark Elves, Odin found that he was already an old man. Now it is the world of young people, and Thor's succession has been officially put on the agenda. As for how to treat Thor's Earth lover Jane, Odin meant to let Thor break up with Jane by intimidation. For example, tell Thor that you can live for 5,000 years, and Earthlings can only live for 100 years. Maybe Jane is still a soft and watery girl before you go out to fight, and when you come back, she looks like she can be your grandmother. But Frigga had a different opinion. Although she also liked Sif, as a woman, her husband could only have one wife, but it didn't matter how many wives her son had. Moreover, compared with Sif, who was more like a man than a woman, scientist Jane was more in line with the aesthetics of magician Frigga. So Frigga, who was not dead, unexpectedly whispered to Odin, and a test was secretly born. As long as Jane could pass Odin's test, she could obtain the immortality and divine power he bestowed. As the king of gods, Odin still had this card. Lizia didn't know about the change of Odin and his wife's concept, but he knew a little that Jane became a female Thor in the comics, but he didn't know the specific details. Of course, Jane's story is another line, which has little to do with Lizia. He has no obligations to Jane and doesn't have that much time to participate, and he doesn't like NTR. Some friends may want to mention Gwen again. Before, Lizia and Gwen got together because in this time and space, Gwen was the first to fall in love with Lizia. When they fell in love, they couldn't stop dating. Is there any problem? But when it comes to Gwen, Lizia suddenly missed her. He fell in love with, 2 words, such a girl in 2 lives. That kind of feeling is naturally worth cherishing. The plot that has been harmonized does not count. Why not take this opportunity to go back and see Gwen? This trip has been so long, and there are a lot of accumulated fire. It's time to use it up. When leaving Asgard, Lizia took the Rainbow Bridge. Although he had obtained the ice box that can pass through the 9 realms, he would not enter and leave Asgard at will. This is a respect for Odin and Thor. Before leaving, Lizia went to the dungeon and visited Loki, who failed to escape from the dungeon due to the plot adaptation and made meritorious contributions. "You came to see me laugh." Loki stood there elegantly in the dungeon, not like a prisoner but like a gentleman waiting for guests. Lizia scratched the back of his head. "Is it that obvious? Your mouth is almost grinning to your ears. Can it be more obvious?" Loki sat down on the seat, picked up a book and flipped through it quietly. "Okay," Lizia shrugged, no longer hiding his smile. "I just want to tell you that your mother Frigga was kidnapped by a man wearing a totem mask who escaped from the dungeon." Without caring about Loki's reaction, Lizia continued, "This man killed no less than 100 Asgardian warriors, destroyed the energy defense formation of Asgard, and held Frigga hostage and pointed his sword at her vest. If I was half a second late, the consequences would be disastrous." Loki put down the book and looked up at Lizia. "So, it was you who saved her instead of Thor? Is this what you are focusing on?" Lizia frowned. "Did I mention Thor? And shouldn't you be concerned about your mother's safety first at this time?" Shaking her head, leaving behind Loki, whose brain circuits were different from those of ordinary people, Lizia turned and left. This unlucky child should be left to Odin and his wife to take care of. They are going to retire soon anyway, and if they don't have a grandson, they can just take care of their son. 120. Record it and see if I can complete the ambition of 20 chapters this week. Chapter 242 Frozen. When seeing Gwen again, Lizia felt as if a century had passed. "Do you know, I almost, just almost, would never see you again." Looking at Gwen's pretty face, Lizia couldn't help but burst into tears. He wanted to thank the readers but didn't know whether to thank them for their support and encouragement or for their perseverance. Otherwise, he might have stayed in the ice and snow of Jotunheim for the rest of his life, holding a spear and sighing helplessly. The excitement and joy on Gwen's face were no less than Lizia's. After tasting the intimacy and excitement of love, children of this age wished they could stick to the boy they liked every day. Fortunately, Gwen's personality was relatively independent. She was not the kind of girl who wanted to tie the other person or be tied to the other person's belt. So Lizia had so much time to travel around the world and even the universe. "You still know how to come back." The excitement and joy on her face were forcibly suppressed. Gwen deliberately put on a sour face and threw Lizia into the air. With both hands raised, white spider silk flew out continuously from the spider silk launcher on her wrist. Lizia did not resist, allowing his body to fly to the highest point, and then fell in free fall. Even though this was the roof of the Osborne building, hundreds of meters above the ground, and it would be difficult for him to fall. The distance of descent was shorter than the height of ascent, and Lazia felt a flexible large net below him catching his body in midair, and then a fiery white figure jumped into his arms. Gwen, wearing a black and white spider suit, was the best in the world, both visually and tactily. Swinging back and forth in the wide spider web, Lazia gently stroked Gwen's hair. To be honest, our identities are more sensitive now. I'm afraid that many eyes are watching us through different channels. If we really do whatever we want here, we might be censored. Gwen lazily slapped Lazia on top of her, resting her head on his chest, not wanting to move lazily. Then what do you say? This is the most romantic place I can think of. Stroking Gwen's pigtails on top of her head, Lazia suddenly thought of something. Do you want to do something fun? Gwen said without even looking up. Didn't you say there were a lot of people watching? Just let me lie down for a while. I don't like live broadcasts. Lazia raised her lips. What are you thinking about? I learned a magic trick recently. Let me show it to you. Gwen was not really interested, but she still pretended to be very curious. What magic trick? Look. Lazia pointed to the sky. Gwen looked up at the sky along Lazia's finger. The moon was bright tonight, and there were no clouds in the sky. The stars were not very clear under the reflection of the city lights. What are you looking at? Gwen couldn't say anything more. Right in front of her, under the clear night sky, white snowflakes suddenly appeared in the air. Is it okay to describe it as snowflakes? Although it is not midsummer now, it is still some time before winter. It is a bit abnormal to snow in this season. Moreover, there are no clouds in the sky. How can there be snow? This is much more incredible than a sun shower. The appearance of snowflakes was not accidental, but gathered and fell quickly in the air. In just a moment, the entire roof of Osborne was covered with ice and snow. Gwen, who was in the ice and snow, did not feel cold, because Lazia under her was like a stove, constantly inputting heat into her. Why is it snowing? And Gwen looked at the building around her where there was no snowflakes, and turned to look at Lazia excitedly. Did you do this? Of course. Lazia nodded, holding Gwen up from the hammock, and landed lightly. Under her feet, the snowflakes suddenly retreated where Lazia stepped, turning into a blue ice surface, which quickly spread around. In just a moment, an ice platform with a diameter of more than 20 meters was formed on the roof, shaped like a snowflake magnified countless times. I want to skate. Seeing this, Gwen shouted and wanted to jump down, but unfortunately Lazia stopped her. Be patient. It's not over yet. The hollows of the snowflake platform were quickly filled with darker ice, and then Lazia raised her hand, and a thick icicle extended from each of the 6 legs of the hexagonal platform. The icicle not only propped up the platform, but also continued to extend upward, closing into a hexagonal spire at a height of several dozen meters. A huge icicle with a strange shape appeared inside the spire, gathering and scattering white moonlight, illuminating the hall made of ice. This is just the beginning, not the end. In the white ice house, ice layers continued to appear. Stairs, rooms, and furniture appeared one after another, and carved windows and doors were also open under the night sky, allowing the evening breeze to blow. Is this a palace? Gwen, standing on the open-air balcony on the 2nd floor, couldn't close her legs. What did she see? Is this a Disney princess castle? Every girl has a princess dream, and has dreamed of living in a palace that only exists in fairy tales. And now, she was really in a palace made of ice that was so beautiful that even a fairy tale could not imagine. Am I dreaming? Obviously not, Your Highness. Lazia invited Gwen. I wonder if I would be honored to ask you to dance with me. Gwen extended her hand and gladly accepted the invitation. Romantic music sounded in the palace, and the two of them put their hands together and twisted their waists together. Soon, a short separation is better than a new marriage, and many things have become familiar. Soon, the elegant waltz turned into a decadent music, and an R-rated action comedy was about to be staged. Knock knock knock. The sound of knocking on the window was very gentlemanly, but the voice was very annoying. Listen, people inside, I will give you 5 seconds to pack your clothes. In 5 seconds, I will blow off this unfortunate roof. Please don't let me see anything that will make me feel comfortable. Thank you. A muffled voice sounded outside the window. The familiar voice and annoying tone made the identity of the visitor self-evident. There are always some people in this world who are annoying. Some are handsome, some are rich, some are smart, some are sharp-tongued, and some are just because they like to show up at inappropriate times and in places where they shouldn't be. Unfortunately, Iron Man Tony Stark has all these attributes. The window shook gently but didn't open. A stream of cold air rushed out from the window slit, and within a moment, the arrogant Iron Man was frozen into a nice sculpture. "Mr. Shit, how are you?" Lazia pushed the door open and waved her hand in the air. A stream of ice meandered into the air. "Oh ah ooh," an excited voice sounded from the air, and a red and blue voice flew down the top of the ice stream, and stepped on the ice and flew down the ice stream. "Yo yeah, damn." Skating on the roof of a building several hundred meters high at midnight, Parker was as excited as a child. 220. It seems meaningless. Chapter 243 Parker's farewell. If you don't want to be discovered, you shouldn't be too high profile. It's impossible not to attract attention by covering the palace with ice on the roof of a building with more than 100 floors. Moreover, this is Manhattan, New York, which has experienced alien invasion. If Fury hadn't informed the council, military aircraft might have appeared at this time. Parker slid down the ice floe and gave Lazia a big hug. "Hi, buddy, long time no see." Lazia dodged as much as possible, but still couldn't avoid bumping into Parker. "Hey, Sauru." Parker took a step back with embarrassment, scratched his head and looked at Gwen behind Lazia. It seems that we came at the wrong time?" "It's okay, come in and sit down." Gwen smiled and led the two into the palace. When passing by Lazia, she couldn't help pinching him with her hand. "It's all your fault. You made such a big fuss. Otherwise, why would they come?" Lazia felt very wronged. "I didn't want to be like this." "Didn't I want to give you a surprise? Why don't you like this palace?" "I like it very much, but..." Gwen was happy but also a little regretful. "It's a pity that it's made of ice. It will melt sooner or later." After entering the house, Tony and Parker looked at the display inside and marveled at it. At the same time, they were more curious about the name of Saint Seiya. Unlike Parker, who was working overtime in the city at night and passed by here to take a look, Tony had been waiting for Lazia to come back, and he had some opinions about Lazia not notifying him immediately after returning from Asgard. Tony sat down on the iced sofa wearing his iron suit. He was not afraid of the cold, but Parker was a little uncomfortable because of the low temperature inside. A ball of fire appeared in Lazia's hand and he threw it into the fireplace next to him. The brilliant flame burned in the ice fireplace, and the warm current began to wander in the room, but all the ice, including the ground, walls, and fireplace, showed no signs of melting. This control made Tony frown. "This bastard is getting more and more powerful." How is it? "Did you get the stuff?" Tony asked, no longer bothering about Lazia's problem. This was the reason why he rushed here so urgently at night. With the in-depth study of space junk, Tony found that the current technological level of the Earth was too different from that of the aliens. It was almost impossible to develop it step by step in a short period of time. For the alien invasion that could occur again at any time, Tony urgently needed more technology and materials for research. Before he came into contact with Wakanda's nanotechnology, the Rue that Lazia promised to get back from Asgard was what Tony needed most at the moment. "I didn't bring any back." Lazia shook her head, and then said, "But don't be nervous. I didn't come back just to see Gwen this time. I'm also a superhero, so I won't confuse the important with the important. I actually came back to invite you to help Asgard. You don't know that Asgard was invaded by the Dark Elves a few days ago. It was a terrible fight, even worse than New York now." What Lazia said was not an exaggeration. Most of the Chitauri who came in from New York were single soldiers. The shrimp airship did not cause as much damage as in the movie under the active efforts of Lazia, Parker and others. "But I'm very busy with my research now, and I can't leave." Tony frowned and said, "The point is," Lazia interrupted him, "don't you want to go to Asgard to see how far their technology has developed? Maybe we can pack it all up and bring it back." "Are you serious?" Tony was not calm. He had always used the arrogant Thor as a reference to consider the Asgardians, thinking that they would not cooperate with the Earth, and even if they did, it would be a one-sided charity. But if we can pack up Asgard stuff and bring it back, it will be much easier than reversing the technology from the wreckage of the Chitauri spacecraft. Adults know how to choose between the full set of nuclear bomb technology and the nuclear bomb itself. Of course. Lazia raised her eyebrows. These days, I helped them quell rebellions in several countries, defeated their millennium-old enemy the Dark Elves, and captured the Dark Elf leader Malekith alive, and most importantly, I saved Thor's mother. If all this is not enough for them to open their technology to us, I will find a way to release Odin's daughter. You don't know, but Odin's daughter is one of the best in Asgard in terms of both figure and strength. I'm talking about strength. I don't know about other things. After all, I haven't seen her either. I just heard about it. Ha ha ha. Feeling the chill on his back gradually disappear, Lazia continued to say to Tony, hurry up and get ready. When you're ready, just give the sky your middle finger. This is the secret signal we agreed on before I left. Heimdall on the Rainbow Bridge is always watching you. By the way, remember to draw the curtains when you're laughing with Sister Pepper recently. Just make a gesture when you're ready, and he'll pull you over when he sees it. As he spoke, Lazia made an okay gesture on his leg with his hand. Are you sure it's the middle finger? Tony naturally couldn't believe everything, but it's possible that the Asgardians' hand gestures represent different meanings than those of Earthlings. Haha, of course. Lazia gave a thumbs up. You'll have no problem trusting me. Aren't you going with me? Tony stood up and prepared to leave. I have something else to do. Lazia shook her head. I'm also serving as a dean in China, and I haven't fulfilled any obligations. This time I'll find something for those kids to do. Tony left, but Parker didn't leave. Instead, he looked at Lazia, who seemed to be hesitant and wanted to say something but didn't know how to start. Peter, do you have hemorrhoids? Lazia couldn't help asking. No, how could it be possible? I just have an ulcer in my mouth. Not. I didn't mean to say that. Parker shook his head quickly. I just, let me say it. Gwen took over the conversation, but Lazia's heart tightened suddenly. What do you mean? I was out for a few days, and you two did something behind my back. It's like this. Gwen rolled her eyes at Lazia and said concisely, Jessica is going to study in the UK and wants Parker to go with her. So, Lazia frowned. Spider-Man's girlfriend is going to study in the UK. Why is this plot inexplicably familiar? Do you want to go too? Lazia asked Gwen, not Parker, as she had mentioned it before. Who would have thought that Gwen would roll her eyes directly? Why should I go? To be a light bulb. Yes, I want to go. Parker raised his hand. I want to go with Jessica and exercise myself. By the way, to be honest, I don't think New York needs me that much now. In the New York War, Spider-Man's contribution was indeed not at the forefront, but it would be biased to say that New York does not need Spider-Man. New York's good neighbors have long dominated the top of the superhero popularity rankings, but everyone is an adult. Since Parker has made a decision, Lazia will not stop him. After all, everyone will grow up sooner or later and have their own way to go. Go, and try to bring a few little spiders back when you come back. Lazia sincerely wished. It's only a few years. How can it be so fast? Parker scratched his head with a smile, looking as shy as he was back then. Okay, now that we've finished talking, I'll be leaving first. Parker put the hood back on, jumped onto the railing outside the window, squatted on it and looked back. Hurry up and have the baby. I won't bother you anymore. If you don't hurry up, it will be dawn soon. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244. It's all garbage. After seeing Parker often taking care of Gwen, Lazia's life became busy again. He took Tony's private plane to rest, catch up on sleep and replenish protein. When the plane landed at Dongpu Airport on the sea, he was resurrected on the spot with full status. He had already communicated with Zheng Xian before returning to China this time, so Captain Tao had been waiting for a long time just after getting off the plane. Without further ado, The two of them set off again and arrived at Mount Lushan not long after. It was not long since the last time they came to La'ayuan, only 1 or 2 months. In a short period of time, the elementary class of La'ayuan has grown to more than 100 people. Those who had listened to Lazia's lectures before were all the best in the class. The elementary class is divided into those who have already comprehended the sense of qi, those who are familiar with the skills of using qi to fight, and those who have further polished their bodies to prepare for the condensation of back patterns. According to Lazia's previous conception, the basic class for comprehending the sense of qi and the advanced version of the elementary class later only need to practice step by step, and the condensation of back patterns will be a natural process. It is not good to force things too much. But now he has a different idea. Qualified soldiers cannot be trained in a greenhouse. Soldiers can only grow up in battle. How does that saying go? Martial arts must be fought for. Haha. In a word, Lazia does not want the students of La'ayuan to be people who only have theories and skills but do not know the cruelty of war and dare not participate in war. So, he found some fun for the children in the junior class. All the junior class academy assemble. With a loud shout, more than 100 children gathered and lined up. In just a moment, they were neatly arranged and a team was solemn. The one who called for the assembly was an officer in camouflage uniform, with 2 bars and 1 star on his shoulders. He spoke straightforwardly and with a righteous face. Report, Deanla, there should be 123 people in the La'ayuan junior class, and there are 123 people in the actual number. Please give instructions. Lazia smiled and saluted the officer. Get in line. Yes. More than 100 children were trained by Captain Yang to look like soldiers in a few months, which made Lazia very pleased. The iron-willed soldiers will always be the cutest people in people's hearts. It was a pity that Captain Yang was about to lead his former commando team to carry out a mission, and he could not continue to lead this group of students. It was a pity. I am very pleased to see your performance now. Lazia smiled as he looked at those faces. There was the girl Zhang Wen's whose name he did not even mention, the hope of the whole village Yang 20, and many other young men he did not know, but who were equally energetic. According to the usual practice, I should make a turn now and say something that you are nothing in my eyes to stimulate your rebellious psychology, so that you can train yourself harder to prove yourself to me. Lazia paused, and seeing someone's face smiling, he also smiled. Do you feel that I am an unconventional and unique dean? Yes, someone responded loudly. Congratulations, you got the answer right. Lazia smiled and nodded. I'm really not sticking to one pattern, so I won't hit you with words. I'll take direct action to let you know that you are all garbage now. Facts have proved that smilingly saying that everyone present is garbage is very effective in attracting hatred, especially since Lazia just smiled and said that I won't look down on you. Among the students below, the eyes of the impatient ones are about to burst into fire. If you are not convinced, good, I'll give you a chance to prove myself. After Lazia finished speaking, a blue crystal box appeared in his hand. It was the ice magic box he took from Odin's treasure house. The blue light on the ice magic box flashed, and a mist enveloped a piece of open space in front of everyone. With the appearance of the mist, the temperature of the square dropped sharply and soon broke through below zero. Just when the students couldn't help but shiver, several tall blue figures slowly emerged from the mist. After 1,000 years, the ice giant appeared on the earth again. 123 versus 10. I give you a chance. If you defeat them, you will all be promoted to the advanced class and learn how to condense the back pattern. If you lose, all of you will be expelled. The students, who were already somewhat impatient after being stimulated by Lazia's words that they were all rubbish, instantly exploded when they heard the threat of expulsion. Go ahead, beat them. Let the dean see how powerful we are. Soon, the students rushed towards the ice giant. Although the ice giant was relatively tall, the students had an absolute advantage in numbers. Even if they piled up, they could kill the giant. Moreover, these students thought they had learned the dragon slaying skills and did not take the ugly ice giant seriously. One word, do it. In the blink of an eye, the army of students crashed into the small circle where the ice giant was, and then with a loud bang, the fastest few rushed out at a faster speed. The ice giant retracted the huge ice stick he had swung and slammed it on the ground, clenched his fists and raised his head to the sky and roared, "Foolish earthlings, I'm afraid you have forgotten the horror of the ice giants. Now let us remind you." The students who were thrown into the air vomited blood in the air, and fell to the ground and rolled several times before they lost consciousness. Fortunately, the ice giants had been told by Lazai not to use skills such as ice cones that have the effect of piercing armor. Otherwise these unlucky guys would have been turned into sieves. The unlucky guys were not scared by being knocked away. They were at an age where they were not afraid of anything. There was no such thing as bullying the weak and fearing the strong. The harder you are, the more I will fight you to the end. Therefore, the students behind continued to rush forward without stopping, but they would pay attention to avoiding the weapons of the ice giants to avoid being hit directly. Unfortunately, the ice giants were powerful and fast, and they quickly gained the upper hand in the face of a group of scattered students. After paying more than 20 losses in combat power, the students did not touch the loincloth of the ice giants. "This won't work, we need tactics," a young man in the crowd shouted. Lazai looked over and searched for his information in her mind, but found that she didn't know him. "His name is Lin Lai. He has great talent and understanding. He may be the best student of this class." Captain Yang introduced him. Next to Lin Lai stood a man and a woman. In the attack just now, the three of them cooperated with each other. Although they didn't hit the ice giant, they were not hit by their weapons. The students obviously knew him, and the boy's prestige was not low. Soon, the remaining people were organized in a proper manner, divided into several teams, and launched a tentative attack on the ice giant. "What do you think, Captain Yang? Do you think they can take down those giants?" Lazai used his small universe to protect the students who might be injured or killed at any time, while chatting with Captain Yang seemingly unintentionally. Captain Yang shook his head. "I don't know the information of those giants, so I can't judge, and I'm not familiar with their fighting style. I'm more proficient in hot weapons." "Yeah, that's true," Lazai nodded. "However, if your commando team can be equipped with a few inbound personnel, overseas rescue operations should be more smooth. After all, terrorists nowadays are not just armed bandits." "I'll apply to the leader." Captain Yang's eyes suddenly lit up. The students trained by La Yuan are not just to fight with Thanos' army. Their needs are actually quite broad. Chapter 245. The universe is huge. 123 vs 10. Battle ended with a tragic victory for the La Yuan students after Lazai secretly ordered the ice giants to let them go. While not completely destroying their self-confidence, they were given a profound and painful lesson, and the road ahead would be easier to walk for them. This should be the best result. This kind of battle will not be the only one. With the ice box in hand, Lazai will often mobilize the interaction between the ice giants and the La Yuan students. It may be on the playground, in the cafeteria, or even in the dormitory. The ice giants may rush in anytime and anywhere. It can be predicted that the future days of the La Yuan students will not be easy. When the students grow to a certain level, Lazai will also use the ice box to send them to Jotunheim to fight in the home court of the Frost Giants. At that time, the students' strength growth may explode. On the La Yuan side, Lazai did not intend to stay as a nanny. He taught almost everything he could teach, and the rest was up to them. It is foreseeable that in the near future, a large number of warriors who use natural energy to fight will appear in the country. As for whether they will be called Taoist priests or Senryuo warriors, Lazai does not intend to intervene. As for the microcosm that involves the principles of the universe, Lazai will not teach them. Yes, he will not. In all senses, it may be that there is something in the dark that restricts the spread of the power of the microcosm. So far, in this world, only Lazai can use it. Lazai thought about this a little bit, but it is not enough to get to the bottom of it. The 12 golden predecessors have not been collected yet. The truth will always come out one day. Lazai left La Yuan and returned to Asgard again, accompanied by Tony and his army of Iron Man. During the time when Lazai was away from Earth, Tony had already produced more than a dozen Iron Man suits. With the assistance of Jarvis, these Iron Man suits can independently carry out activities and fight, just like what was shown in Iron Man 3 inches. Of course, This time, Lozian would never allow Tony to use the Iron Man suit to play with fireworks, which is a stupid and rich behavior. Keeping the Vanguard to fight Thanos is definitely more useful than the Black Uncles and Black Ants in Wakanda. Of course, Lozian did not stay in Asgard for too long, because Thor mentioned a person, the Cosmic Collector. According to Odin's thinking, after obtaining the ether particles, they cannot be stored in Asgard together with the Cosmic Cube. His original plan was to send the ether particles to the Cosmic Collector and let him keep them for him. Although in Lozian's eyes, the Cosmic Collector is a kidney-deficient man who can only use thick eyeliner and foundation to cover his haggard face. But in Odin's eyes, the Cosmic Collector is a strong man with a long life, strong strength and extensive collection. According to legend, the Cosmic Collector was born in the oldest race and is one of the elders of the universe. He also has powerful abilities, such as immortality, time travel, and foreknowledge of the future. But from what Lozian knows about the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Immortal Collector was eventually killed by Thanos. Time travel was not shown. If it was possible, it should be possible to avoid Thanos killing. It can be seen that it is mostly bragging. Predicting the future is even more ridiculous. If it can really predict the future, it would have escaped long before Thanos came. It would not stay and wait for death. Look at how those pig lords who can predict the future play at a certain point next door. If they are really given thousands of years, not to mention the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even the multiverse will be dominated by them. Don't say that after the glory, everything will eventually return to peace, since you're the boss. Don't think about peace. Peace can only become a stepping stone for rising stars to reach the top. Now, Odin's plan is useless because the ether particles have been absorbed by Lozian, and according to Lozian, he did not absorb it voluntarily, so there is no way to get it out. He even doesn't know where the ether particles are now. Lozian said so. What else can Odin do? After all, he can't do such cruel things as cutting people open and digging things out. The matter of the ether particles came to an end, and Malekith disappeared. Later, it was heard that the ice sculpture seemed to have accidentally collided during the transportation process and broke. In the end, it was left unresolved because no one could determine the responsibility. It was impossible to punish the temporary porter. The leader of the Dark Elves, the first generation of villain Malekith, died in such a frustrated way. Apart from forcibly demolishing some legal buildings in Asgard, he did not make any achievements. In the tavern, Lozian and Thor sat opposite each other, each with a glass of beer in his hand. "Do you want to go to the void?" Thor asked while drinking. "Well," Lozian nodded, "the universe is so big, I want to go and see it." "But why go to the void? It's not a good place." Thor put down the glass and said with a frown, "The void is where the Cosmic Collector is located. At the same time, it is also a chaotic place with almost no order. There are mercenaries, fugitives, and space pirates. There's no reason." Odin just happened to mention the Collector in the void, so I wanted to go and take a look. It is said that the Collector is older than Odin, and the things in his treasure house must be no worse than Odin's treasure house. Lozian took a sip of wine. He would not tell Thor that he wanted to wait for Star-Lord, that idiot. The timeline of this world seemed to have accelerated. He was not sure whether Star-Lord was wandering in the universe or had been imprisoned by the Nova Corps. It would be better to go to the Collector first. Waiting for something is always easier than finding a needle in a haystack. By the way, Lozian put down the wine glass and smacked his lips. "Are you really not going to consider my suggestion? The original beer of Tsingtao beer tastes very good." Thor smiled honestly. "Where did the Tsingtao beer you mentioned come from?" "Germany, right?" "Then where did the German beer come from? What do you want to say?" "Haha." Thor smiled without saying anything. Lozian shrugged and did not mention the role of innovation and improvement in the process of technology inheritance in improving product quality and value. "It's up to you, old antique." Thor had mocked the earth as a barren land not long ago. However, Thor was considered a relatively flexible person in Asgard. Although he has not officially succeeded to the throne yet, cooperation with the Earth has already begun. If it weren't for his agreement, Tony would not have brought the Iron Army to plunder Asgard's high-tech in the name of helping. Thor on the opposite side nodded and agreed to Lozian's previous proposal. I'll make arrangements for you tomorrow. Do you need someone to accompany you? Let's Sif. Hey, buddy. Lazai was helpless. He actually had to arrange for Sif to accompany him on a business trip. Letting the woman who liked him accompany another man on a business trip. How much he disliked her. Even if they couldn't be lovers, wouldn't it be good to be friends? Chapter 246. Land of Nothingness. Thor didn't mean to send his sister off. He just felt that Sif was in a bad mood recently, and wanted her to go out and relax. After listening to Lazai's statement, Thor also felt that it seemed inappropriate for him to do so, so he gave up the idea. Leaving Tony in Asgard, Lazai set off again, aiming for the void. The void is not a planet, but an asteroid-like existence. From the outside, it looks like a huge human skull with a diameter of tens of kilometers. Well, in fact, the void is a huge skull, which is the chopped-off head of a godlike existence in ancient times. A head is tens of kilometers in size. It is hard to imagine how big the whole body of this god would be when he was alive. What's more, he may not be the largest life in the universe. The terrifying existence that is so big that it can swallow a planet with one mouth is not just a legend. For humans, whether they are Earthlings or other intelligent races in the universe, the organic matter in the skull of the god, including bones, brain tissue, and cerebrospinal fluid, are rare products. So this skull has been mined by laborers for hundreds of years, and the organizer behind this is the collector Tanliutai. This is a super rich mine that has been mined for hundreds of years and has not been mined out. Lazai couldn't help but exclaimed. Yes, the one who was responsible for escorting and explaining was the bearded Volstagg. Without Fandral, the beast in human clothing, Volstagg was still a simple and honest man, and he was also very open and honest to Lazai. But strictly speaking, mining here is against the rules and is not protected, so the situation here can be described in one word, that is, chaos. Simple and kind people would not want to work in such a chaotic place. Most of those who are willing to stay here are some vicious criminals. Lazai nodded to show her understanding. This is probably similar to the Golden Isosceles Triangle. It is in a no-man's land and is doing things that are not allowed by the law. If you want to gain a foothold here, nothing can help except strength. Asgard still has a certain reputation in the universe, a reputation earned by strength, so there is no difficulty in entering and exiting the spaceship. However, Volstagg is not an idle person without a job. Thor still needs his help with many things, so he did not delay and quickly left on the spaceship, leaving Lazai alone in the void. Lazai did not let Volstagg take him to the collector, because it was easy to find out where the collector lived in this place. The surname Tywin represents many things, and no one does not know where the collector lives. Lazai did not plan to go directly to the collector, because according to the appearance in the movie, this guy is likely to be an old shaman. Although he did not appear much in the movie and was killed quickly, this is his base camp after all. God knows how many backups he has ambushed and is ready to bring those robbers who want to kill and rob to justice at any time, or he himself will act as a robber who should be brought to justice and do some murder and robbery. Moreover, Lazai is carrying ether particles on him. What if this old man finds out? Lazai is not afraid of being robbed. At worst, we can break this place and swim in space together. With the holy clothes on, it is more useful than any spacesuit. Moreover, he can easily teleport to Jotunheim with the ice magic box. However, if a fight really breaks out and this place is damaged, Lazai will not be able to wait for the Galaxy Sand Sculpture team. As the saying goes, it is easier and more enjoyable to wait for the rabbit. Walking alone on the busy street, Lazai has the illusion of being in the bar street on Earth. There are all kinds of young ladies soliciting customers and drunkards next to him. The drinking culture here seems to be no different from that on Earth. Well, in this world, the drinking culture of the entire universe may not be much different. On the street, there are aliens whose names cannot be called everywhere. Compared with these people, the monsters in Vanaheim from Journey to the West are not good enough. In addition to those capable women who dress up and men who look very capable, there are groups of children wandering around. When they see people, they will surround them and ask for snacks. I wonder if the origins of these children are the same as Star-Lord. Although Star-Lord is a fool, his life story is quite pitiful. When he was still a child, His mother died of illness, his father was missing, and he was abducted by an alien sea channel and trained to be a thief wandering in the universe. These children are likely to be like Star-Lord, passively becoming theft tools of criminals. Like those abducted children on Earth, they all have a pitiful childhood and a miserable family. Lazia smiled and said goodbye to the children, turning around and walking into a bar next door, letting some change in her pocket disappear inexplicably. Jemia's Boots Bar. The subtitles are translated like this. Lazia doesn't know if it's right, so let's just read it like this. As soon as she entered the bar, Lazia felt as if she had entered a den of thieves. Countless punk, playful, postmodern-looking humanoid creatures with faces that were so crooked that they couldn't bear to look at them were drinking and farting in the bar, making so much noise that the entire roof was about to be blown off. This kind of atmosphere made Lazia feel a little out of place. He even wondered if he should put on some smoky makeup, get some dreadlocks, wear a triangular captain's hat, and speak in a weird voice with his fingers raised. Captain Jack's style was a perfect match for this place. Fortunately, not all the monsters were in the bar. There were still some humans with slightly normal makeup and at least their faces could be seen. Walking straight over and sitting down at a booth with only one person, Lazia smiled and nodded. Do you mind if I sit here? Sitting in the booth was a woman with long hair. Her hair was disheveled, she had smoky makeup on the corners of her eyes, and she had an ascetic face that kept strangers away. Hearing Lazia's voice, the woman raised her head slightly. The crow's feet at the corners of her eyes betrayed her age. She glanced at Lazia. The expression on the woman's face did not change at all. She just squeezed out two words from between her teeth. Mind. Thank you. Lazia smiled and nodded, stretched out her hand and shouted to the bartender, give me a glass of cola, no ice, thank you. The woman looked at Lazia with cold eyes. If eyes could kill, Lazia would probably be pregnant at this time. Haha, Lazia said casually, then leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, leaned forward and asked with a smile, I think you look familiar. Have we met somewhere before? Chapter 247, Chatting. Time is a butcher's knife. Please fill in the blanks with appropriate words to make sentences. From the shape of the woman's face, it can be seen that she must have been an absolutely stunning figure when she was young. But time flies, collagen is gone, and even makeup can't cover up the traces of time. Lazia is not a bulldozer, nor is he so indifferent that he is interested in women who are old enough to be his grandmother. The reason why he came up to chat with her was not only that this woman was one of the few people who looked normal at the scene. Another point was that Lazia really knew her. It was a pity that the woman completely misunderstood what Lazia meant. She had the nerve to use this way of chatting up that came from centuries ago. It was really embarrassing. After rolling her eyes at Lazia, the woman turned her eyes away. She was in a good mood today, otherwise she would have pulled out a gun and shot someone. Really? Lazia took the cola from the waiter and shook it in his hand, as if he was holding a glass of 1982 Lafite. Have you ever heard of the name Hela? The woman in front of him looked very similar to Thor's problematic sister in both her appearance and clothing, but this person was not Hela, but an interstellar predator who appeared in the Easter egg of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The woman didn't want to kill anyone, but she didn't like trouble either. After thinking about it, she simply took out a pistol and threw it on the table. Do you want to get out of here or do I want to get you out of here? Oh, don't be so rude. Lazia looked at the pistol and shook his head, meeting his fate. Why are you so angry? Why don't I buy you a drink? Order whatever you want. Seeing the woman reaching out to grab the pistol, although he was confident that he would not be hurt by the bullet, Lazia still decided to give in. He was not here to fight with others, and even if he did, he couldn't fight with this sister. It was not easy to see another Chinese face, and it would be too stupid to be criticized like Shanghai before. No one dared to let Shanghai appear again. Really? Oh, okay. Lazia stepped back. I'll be honest, I'm here to look for someone. You've heard of the name Star-Lord, right? Star-Lord? From her expression, Lazia could tell that she knew Star-Lord. Also, when Yondu died, she had attended the funeral, so she was obviously quite familiar with Yondu. Given that, he would know Star-Lord, the most capable of jumping under Yondu. Yes, he stole something from my client, and I accepted the commission to get it back. Lazia made up a random excuse. He just wanted to know where the plot was going. Although Star-Lord was somewhat famous in the universe, he was not a well-known figure, and he might not be able to find out the answer from someone he didn't know, so he should just find this woman. Do you know where he is? Can you tell me? I can pay for him. Lazia picked up the kuol and took a sip. By the way, I haven't asked you for your name yet. Eagle. Aletta Eagle. Aletta put away the pistol, raised her hand and called the waiter over. Give me a glass of the most expensive drink. It's his. 2 glasses, Lazia added. 1 glass is too stingy. I like good things to come in pairs. I hope you will think so when you pay later. Some people like to be sucked, so Aletta naturally would not refuse. The drinks came up quickly. Aletta took a sip and put down the glass with satisfaction. That kid made trouble on Xander and was caught by the Nova Corps and thrown into Kling prison. Believe me, Aletta raised the glass. No one can escape from there. If you want to find him to recover the lost items, I'm afraid you have to wait until he is released from prison. So, Star-Lord has been locked up, which means that the cosmic sphere containing the power gem has been obtained by him, and his members of the Guardians of the Galaxy have all gathered, ready to rush out of the prison and into the universe as soon as the horn blows. In this case, it shouldn't take long for them to arrive here. Thank you, Lazia responded. By the way, there is one more thing. Are you familiar with the local snake in this place? I want to ask him something. What is it? I know as much as the people here, as long as you are willing to pay. Aletta put down the glass, and the word money was emphasized. As a predator, she and her team have a highly consistent and clear goal, which is to make money. Lazia thought about it and felt that it didn't matter who she asked, so she asked directly. I want to know who is in charge of those children on the street. Aletta stopped drinking instantly, and her attitude became a little bad. Do you want to attract the attention of those children? Lazia knew the reason for her change of face. Aletta and Starka, who looked like Shi-Tarong, were in the same gang with Yondu back then, but later Yondu was exiled by them for trafficking children privately, and their relationship is still bad. So this group of space predators headed by Starka, including Aletta, are actually a group of predators with child protection awareness in principle. Predators themselves cannot be called righteous. We can only say that there is a code of conduct for thieves. Don't worry, I'm not interested in trafficking children. Lazia shook her head. On the contrary, I'm more interested in those who traffic them. If possible, I hope you can introduce me to some gangs that like to do this kind of business and organizations that like to accept their goods. Lazia still remembers the kidnapping of Le Bing in New York, although it was an accident and a move by S.H.I.E.L.D., and those children were not hurt too much. This kind of thing cannot be tolerated, not only in New York, but also in the future when the students of La Yuan graduate. A group of people will be specially assigned to crack down on domestic child trafficking criminals. All those involved will be judged and punished by justice and will never be tolerated. Hearing what Lazia said, Aletta's face eased, and she whispered a few names and stopped talking. Aletta did not feel any burden to do this kind of thing that would cause trouble to those who disliked it, not to mention that there was money to be made. But after all, it was something that offended people, and it could not be said publicly. What if Lazia failed to do it well and the other party found the source and retaliated? Even if she was not afraid of retaliation, she was afraid of trouble. After writing down these names, Lazia said goodbye and left. After all, it was the first time for everyone to meet, so there was no need to get too close to each other. The universe is so big, and if we meet again in the future, we might sit down and have a drink together, but there is no need to develop some friendship beyond this. After leaving the bar, Lazia found a place to live. This place may not look big, but in fact, the area inside is not less than that of a second or third tier city, and there are many technologies and materials that are not available on Earth. It is better to go and learn more about it, because it may be demolished into ruins in a few days. Chapter 248. The sand sculpture arrives. The Guardians of the Galaxy arrived much faster than Lazia expected. Just when he was about to go to the Boots Bar in Gemma for a drink after following the clues to kill an organization that coerced children to steal, he was kidnapped. Yes, Saint Lazia was kidnapped, From the strong muscles on the two arms that the man stretched out to hold the dagger and the voice coming from multiple angles, it can be seen that this is a tall and strong man. I knew there would be fish that slipped through the net. I was thinking about how to find you, but I didn't expect you to come to my door. Nice. That's right. Lizzie thought the people who kidnapped him were the members of the organization he had just destroyed, and wanted to follow the clues to find more bastards. Otherwise, how could a dignified Silver Saint CEO not react at all when someone touched him from behind? Then, Lizzie heard a simple and honest voice pretending to be fierce behind him. Send a message for me. Tell Ronan the Accuser that the cosmic sphere is here, and I, Drax, am here too, waiting to be destroyed by him. The man's voice was very fierce, but for some reason, Lizzie always felt that he was pretending to be fierce. The name was already mentioned, so the identity of this person was obviously one of the sand sculptures of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Drax the Destroyer. Drax's wife and daughter died at the hands of Ronan the Accuser, and from then on he turned into a destroyer and looked for trouble with Ronan everywhere. Unfortunately, he had no way to find Ronan directly, so he could only kill some of his men, and was eventually imprisoned in Krillin prison and became a prison bully. If he hadn't met Star-Lord and his group, who always brought destruction wherever they went, and had teamed up to escape the prison together, he would probably never have the chance to take revenge in his life. After Drax finished speaking, he let go of his hand and left. Lizzie did not stop him, but found a place far away from the collector's residence and waited to watch the show while looking for someone to pass the message out. There is no need to spend money. Drax's method is very effective. Just find a timid person and threaten him a little, and the news will be spread quickly. As for Drax, Lizzie does not intend to argue with this fool. It is difficult to get pleasure from revenge on him. This guy is missing a string in his brain, and his reaction is several beats slower than others. If you really want to retaliate against him because of what happened just now, I am afraid you need to explain it to him to make him understand that it is revenge and not just picking a fight. Anyway, Ronan will come and make him realize his incompetence and weakness, so let this fool go. Ordering a drink on a building in the distance, Lizzie sat by the window and looked at the collector's residence from a distance. Not long after, he saw a purple light explode in the distance, and a huge shock wave radiated a long distance around. After several seconds, a loud noise came to his ears. The sound shook the glass of the beverage store thousands of meters away and kept shaking, as if it could break at any time. Unfortunately, a tragedy happened. A maid named Karina, after witnessing her compatriots being made into specimens by collectors for a trivial matter, and being oppressed and miserable, finally cried out from the bottom, "I don't want to be your slave anymore." Karina, who was almost crazy, directly grasped the Infinity Stone that could not be touched by the flesh, and was instantly backfired by the power of the stone. Not only was she destroyed by the power, but she also blew up the collector's treasure house. Those who are used to being high and mighty will never know how terrible the struggle from the bottom is. Destruction is just a matter of a moment. Lizzie did not think about saving poor Karina. In this interstellar era, there are too many people like her. She should not be saved just because she is beautiful. Those who are ugly deserve to be enslaved. Compared with those miners who do hard labor, Karina's life is actually better. But her master is more perverted. Well, I almost forgot that her master and the miner's master are actually the same person, the perverted collector. Soon after the explosion, a huge fleet landed here, the necromancer fleet of Ronan the Accuser. Soon after receiving the news from Drax, Ronan, who was nearby, rushed to the void. He didn't know who Drax was and didn't want to know. The cosmic sphere was his ultimate goal. At the same time, another group of people also rushed over quickly after receiving the news, including Yondu's plunder team who was raised by Star-Lord. Fortunately, Aeletta had left a few days ago, otherwise if she met Yondu, she would probably have a dispute. Yondu's goal was naturally the cosmic sphere, but he and Ronan had different ideas. Yondu just wanted to sell the cosmic sphere for money, but Ronan wanted to use it to kill people. As a member of the Kree leadership's Supreme Accuser, Ronan the Accuser is a fanatic of the Kree military. Like Drax, Ronan's family was also killed in the Long War, and his enemy was the Nova Corps of Xander. Similar experiences made Ronan choose the same means of revenge as Drax, and he wanted to kill the murderer who killed his family. Although his enemy is not a person, but a legion, this is not difficult for him, since it was done by the Nova Legion. Then destroy the entire Nova Legion and the Xander planet where it is located. For this reason, Ronan even unilaterally tore up the armistice agreement signed between the Kree and the Xander government. Because of personal grudges, Ronan seems to be more suitable for the title of Destroyer than Drax, who has triggered crazy genocide and revenge. It is not an easy task to destroy Xander. It is difficult to do it with the power in Ronan's hands, so he found Thanos and asked Thanos to help him destroy Xander in exchange for finding the Cosmic Sphere. Therefore, Ronan is determined to get the Cosmic Sphere. The Void soon fell into a melee. The Kree, led by Nebula, drove the Necromancer spacecraft and started a thrilling aerial chase with the local mining vehicle ridden by Star-Lord and others, causing countless destruction and casualties. In the end, without Lazia's participation, the result was almost the same as in the movie. The Cosmic Sphere was taken away by Ronan. When Gamora and Star-Lord were about to die in space, they were rescued and captured by Yondu. Lazia took advantage of the chaos to hide on a Necromancer spaceship and followed Ronan into his main ship. Lazia did not take the Cosmic Sphere immediately, although according to Ronan's strength, it seemed easy for him to get it. But simply snatching the Cosmic Sphere was not Lazia's whole purpose. What he wanted more was the technology of Xander. For the weak Earth, technology is what needs to be improved the most. Chapter 249 Nova Corps. On the main ship, Lazia was like a man in a deserted place. With his current strength, except for a few people on the spaceship, it was almost impossible for other minions to find him. Using the detection function of the small universe, Lazia quickly found the location of Ronan and others, and touched the nearby area for a close inspection. In the empty room, Thanos' big purple face appeared on a wall, and Ronan was arguing with Thanos at this time. Everything that happened in the Void made Ronan know the secret of the Cosmic Sphere, which contained one of the infinite gems containing huge energy, the Power Gem. With the Power Gem in hand, Ronan can obtain unmatched power. What does Thanos need to do? He can destroy Xander himself. And, Thanos, after embedding the Power Gem in his weapon, Ronan's self-confidence has been unprecedentedly soaring. All along, Thanos' bossy attitude has made the arrogant Ronan feel resentful. I, Ronan, will soon become the overlord of this universe, and you, Thanos, dare to call me a kid. When I destroy Xander, I will come and have a good talk with you. The old purple potato spirit, behind Ronan, Nebula, who witnessed all this, decisively chose to defect. Her resentment towards Thanos is deeper than anyone else. Lazia looked at Nebula from a distance, who was expressing her loyalty and volunteering to be the guide, and felt a little emotional. Nebula, who is tall and sexy, can also be ranked in the front row in the Avengers with so many beauties. In fact, most of her parts are machines. In other words, she can't have sex. This is also a poor person. Nebula was adopted by Thanos since she was a child and grew up with Gamora. In order to train the two to become powerful fighters who can travel across the universe, Thanos arranged for them to fight each other when they were very young. The loser will be punished by transforming part of his body into a machine. The heart-piercing pain in the process is simply unbearable. From childhood to adulthood, Nebula never won once, so slowly most of her body was transformed into machinery, and she experienced inhuman pain again and again, and gritted her teeth on the edge of death. Although she finally survived tenaciously and became a powerful warrior, the suffering she experienced would not be forgotten, and it accumulated more and more in her heart, turning into a deep hatred for Thanos. Before, this hatred was suppressed by the inertial fear formed for a long time, so that she dared not explode. Now, after seeing Ronan's strength, the flame of revenge began to grow wildly. Although her hostility towards Gamora seemed to be much stronger than that towards Thanos. However, Lazia, who had watched Guardians of the Galaxy 2 inches, knew that Nebula, who had a cold face, actually longed for family affection in her heart. She hated Gamora not only because she caused her to lose and accept the pain of cruel transformation, but more because she didn't understand why Gamora couldn't let her win once like a sister. even if it was only once. I treat you as a sister, and you only treat me as an opponent who can avoid punishment if you win." Lazia shook her head unconsciously. There must be something pitiful about hateful people. It seems that every villain has a miserable childhood. In Lazia's eyes, the villain Ronan must die. Since he has embarked on the path of the villain boss, he must be prepared to be bullied. Death is the inevitable destination. After all, this is not a dark novel. But when it comes to Nebula, it's better not to kill her. After all, she is also a comrade who has worked side by side with the Avengers in the future. Let her and Gamora love and kill each other. Of course, if she insists on coming out to make trouble, Lazia doesn't mind beating her up. It's a pity that she is a robot. I can't. No, I want to be loyal to Gwen. Lazia shook her head and found a place to sleep. Before Lazia traveled through time, she only watched Avengers 3 inches and didn't know that in Avengers 4 inches, because of Nebula, Thanos from another time and space followed. Although the Avengers fought bloody battles and finally defeated evil, Iron Man paid for it, and Black Widow died on the way to find the Soul Gem. I don't know if you have forgotten this setting. Before crossing over, among the superheroes in the Avengers, Lazia's favorite was Iron Man. If she knew this, Lazia might not have the attitude she has now. Even if this world will not follow the original script because of his appearance, she will inevitably be angry with Nebula, and now she will beat her up to vent her anger. Lazia went to sleep. Ronan's fleet has been on the road. It takes several jumps from the void to Xandar, and there is still a long way to go. Ronan was so excited that he couldn't sleep because he was about to get revenge. Lazia didn't want to stay up with him. I don't know how long I slept, but Lazia heard a noisy sound. It seemed that they had arrived at Xandar and were entering the atmosphere. Lazia got up, patted the dust on his body, and walked out of his hiding place. At this time, the spaceship had already started to get busy, and countless ship-borne dead spaceships were also in combat readiness, ready to attack at any time. This was a battle to destroy a country and a planet. Jingwang Ronan only had one main ship, but he still came with great momentum. On the ground, the Nova Corps had also received a reminder from Star-Lord and knew that Ronan was preparing to invade. Although the top brass had not completely reached a consensus due to their doubts about Star-Lord, when the main ship appeared and engaged in a battle with Yondu's Predator fleet that had arrived in advance, they reacted quickly, and the military aircraft quickly took off and joined the battle sequence. The Nova Corps is also known as the Nova Corps. Their military aircraft look like octagonal stars and have strong maneuverability and firepower output. Unfortunately, their joint attack with the Predator fleet could not break through the defense of Ronan's main ship, and they could only watch the main ship getting closer and closer to the ground. Seeing that the attack was ineffective, the Nova Corps gathered a large number of military aircraft and set up the 12 Dushan Star fighting array in the sky. Don't worry about the name, the meaning is almost the same. The military aircraft connected their hands and tails to form a huge net, blocking the main ship in midair. With unity, although a single military aircraft is countless times smaller than the main ship, when thousands of military aircraft joined forces, they blocked the main ship abruptly. Even Lazia couldn't help but pay tribute to the pilots of the Nova Corps when she saw this scene. The more people involved in a large formation like this, the more they need to work together. If one person escapes early because of fear and terror, the entire formation will be in danger of collapse. However, the Nova Corps held on. Thousands of people were like one person, ignoring their own life and death, and trying their best to stop Ronan's main ship. They would not escape, because they are soldiers, people who always need to be respected. Chapter 250 Falling from the Sky. The battle soon entered a white-hot state. As long as the main ship broke through the blockade of the military aircraft formation, the city below would be completely exposed to the enemy's firepower and would soon become a ruin. It is hard to imagine that a place with such advanced technology on Xandar Star actually has no anti-aircraft guns and anti-aircraft missiles, and only relies on a military aircraft formation to block the invading spacecraft. This kind of operation also surprised Lazia. Even Asgard, a place that focuses on personal force, dares to fight against the sky and the earth with a hammer, and whose architectural style, words and deeds are still stuck in the pre-medieval period. has anti-aircraft guns and energy defense shields. Moreover, after observation, Lazia found that there is really no new star superhero in the comics who is as powerful as Thor and uses his body as a weapon. If it weren't for the arrival of the Predator's fleet and the Guardians of the Galaxy, the battle would have ended long ago. The Nova Corps, whose reputation resounds throughout the universe, is so weak that it makes people worried. However, despite this, the military aircraft formation could not hold out for too long. The power of the main ship itself made them exhausted, not to mention Ronan, who mastered the power gem. Under Ronan's attack, the large network formed by the military aircraft formation was torn apart severely, and countless ace pilots and loyal soldiers were blood-stained in the sky. For the Nova Corps, they were powerless. At this time, they could only hope for the unreliable Galaxy Guard, or, in the Nova military headquarters, the elegant woman, the Supreme Commander, known as the Nova Supreme, was also a little flustered at this time, and things were completely out of her control. Not long after signing the armistice agreement with Kree, Ronan unilaterally tore up the agreement and attacked the Nova Corps outposts everywhere. This time, he openly attacked with an invincible force, and his own side was actually defeated and even in danger of being destroyed under the opponent's attack. This made the arrogant commander a little difficult to accept. Maybe he could ask for help, but he didn't know who to ask and where to find it. Of course, the Galaxy Guard, a newly established temporary guest justice team, is not the only guardian in the universe who is not soft-hearted when it comes to black eating black. A long time ago, there was a woman with golden light all over her body who came here. She wore a military uniform similar to the Kree style but with different color matching, and possessed extremely powerful strength. Unlike Ronan, the woman came to Xandar not to conquer and destroy, but to protect order. Unfortunately, she did not stay and left soon. If she could contact that woman, she might be able to stop Ronan and save Xandar. However, that woman's goal was the Sea of Stars. Even the Earth where she was born could not stop her steps, let alone the Xandar planet she had never met. The universe is so big that I don't know how to find her. Just when Nova Supreme missed a square-faced golden light woman, someone suddenly exclaimed and looked up at the sky. She looked up with the eyes of the crowd and saw a white light in the sky flying from the sky. The radar quickly locked the shadow of the light and displayed the image in real time on the screen next to it. Everyone looked over and saw that the center of the light was a humanoid object with a silver mask on his face, silver armor on his body, and a white cape fluttering in the wind behind him. The man was extremely fast, and the high temperature generated by the friction of his body through the air covered the white light with a layer of red and yellow flames. But in the flames, his white cape did not show any signs of burning. Is this man an enemy or a friend? This thought came to everyone's mind at the same time, but Nova Supreme had an association in his mind. This person's appearance is exactly the same as that one, although the shape and color are different, but maybe they are in the same group. Both are guardians of the order of the universe. Lazia naturally didn't know what the Nova Legion was thinking. He had it teleported outside the atmosphere during the chaos before, and now he just chose a time that he thought was more appropriate to break in, wanting to achieve better results. No matter where in this world, icing on the cake is always better than sending charcoal in the snow. If he had appeared on Xandar before, it goes without saying that his identity and purpose would be questioned. Even if he helped solve the problem now, it was voluntary. Maybe someone would think that he brought disaster and take it out on him. But now, the defense of the Nova Corps has been breached, and the city and the people are nakedly exposed to the enemy's guns and artillery, and there is a disaster of genocide at any time. Lazai helped solve the problem, and his status in the hearts of the people of Xandar is probably no weaker than that of God, and they will be extremely grateful in their hearts. So it's not that Lazai didn't want to save the heroic soldiers of the Nova Corps, but he had to do so. Just when Lazai appeared, the radar in the main ship also found his figure. After receiving the report from his men, Ronan didn't care about the entanglement with the Predator Corps and the Guardians of the Galaxy. With a wave of his hand, all the troops and firepower were aimed at the white light that appeared in the sky. From his perspective, it was easy to judge that the target route of the white light was his main ship, and there was no tendency for the white light to slow down at all. which was obviously not a good intention. Ronan was at the peak of his power. How could he tolerate such hostility from unknown sources? In one word, blow him up. Inside the main ship, the Guardians of the Galaxy, who were entangled with Nebula and the Socket tribe, also received a reminder from Rocket Raccoon on the spaceship outside, and knew about the uninvited guest flying in the sky. Rocket's judgment was similar to Ronan's, but he did not have Ronan's blind confidence. After a brief analysis, he shouted into the headset, "Don't worry about anything now, run, run, Forrest, run." Although Star-Lord was usually unreliable, he was always unexpectedly calm and made the most correct judgment in the face of major events. After receiving Rocket Raccoon's instructions, he dragged Gamora and others and fled frantically without saying a word. Just as the Nova military looked at them expectantly and puzzled, the white light in the sky hit the huge main ship in the sky, and then the main ship paused obviously, and the flight trajectory also showed a slight deviation. A moment later, the bottom of the main ship was broken by white light, and Lazia pierced through it with great force, while the main ship behind him began to explode from the inside out. Although he had not seen Avengers 4 inches, Lazia subconsciously made the same move as Captain Marvel in the movie, piercing through a huge space carrier with his flesh and blood. Turning and stopping in midair, Lazia watched his masterpiece up close, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart, wondering if he could beat the Avengers with his current strength. The first 5 are definitely no problem. Even if Thor awakens the power of Thunder God, Lazia is not afraid, because the other few are basically extras. If everyone in the Civil War period gathers together, it may be a bit shaky. After all, there is also a Vision who is made of vibranium, has extraordinary wisdom, rich combat skills, and has an Infinity Stone embedded in his head. This is a bit more troublesome. If the reality gem in the ether particle can be developed, Vision is just a little brother. Just as he was thinking about it, a few people suddenly flew out from the exploding main ship. Lazia looked closely and saw that they were the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Did these people get chased by chickens while trying to steal eggs? Even their shoes ran away. Lazia couldn't help but sneer, as if he didn't remember that it was because he had pierced the main ship that made them so embarrassed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.